Trustee February? Hello.
Braxton, I can hear it.
You can carry.
Yep. You. We call this Plan Commission meeting to order. This meeting has been given notice in accordance with Section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all members are present except for Chairman Walter. A motion would be in order to appoint a Chairman pro tem.
I'll move that we make trustee Baum our chairman pro tem for the duration of this meeting.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to appoint trustee Baum as Chairman pro tem. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
That brings us to approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All in favor. Next on the agenda, item 4, citizen input. Please be advised per 19.84 parent 2 that information and comment will be received from the public. It is the policy of this municipality that public input be limited to 3-minute period per person with a time extension granted at the discretion of the chairperson. Be advised that there may be limited discussion of the information received, but no action will be taken under public comment. Is there anybody wishing to come forward for public comment? Come on forward. Up to this microphone here. That one there. Now, we have a problem with it electrocuting people, so you're the guinea pig today. So wait, you gotta push the button on this one here. Jan will help you behind you. Okay, you are now on.
All right, you probably wouldn't hear me otherwise. Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Mary Schultheis. My husband Don is with me tonight. I'm talking on the Coburg District property that is going to be voted on tonight, I believe. We live directly south of that property. And we were at the meeting in October 2022, and the majority of the people that spoke were saying that 3 stories appears to be too high. And we totally agree with that. I want to go on record that we aren't opposed to the whole project, but people talked about suggestions of moving the garages separate and lowering it to 2 stories. And if they would do that, that would be fine. They came up with 6 townhouses, and the new revision has 4. Again, if they would move the garages, we'd be much happier with the whole project. I would hope that all of you have driven by the Coburg area, because we are also very disappointed. The coffee shop is up and running. It took a long time for it to get up and running. And unfortunately, the bar, which is supposed to be a restaurant, and the patio, nothing has been done at all for 2 years. And I knew that that was also approved by, I believe, the same people that are putting forth this townhouse project. And I would like to see that finished before anything is approved, if you would consider that. The other thing that I don't know if the people that are buying the property are aware of, but in 1980, there was an accident. And the people that owned the property originally had a filling station and a garage on that property, and a car ran into the garage. And that whole 2-story garage was buried on the property where these townhouses are going to be. So I just want everybody to be aware there could be some contamination as well. And this is what I wanted to bring forth. And I guess I'm saying what I have to say.
Okay,
Mr. Baum was very nice to come out and listen to us also earlier this week. So thank you for your time.
thank you for coming forward. Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else wishing to step forward? Okay, wait, hold on a second. I'll help you out. Okay? Okay? What topic are you here for? The same building? The 4 townhouses at the roundabout? That's not it. Okay, is that on a public hearing? That'll be on a public hearing, so I will make sure that you get time during public hearing. Okay, all right.
Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. So tonight I'm going to talk about our tax dollars at work. And we all know that Germantown is kind of a unique village in a way, because it's made up of 5 smaller villages that came together. And in response to not wanting to be swallowed up by Milwaukee and the dump. So this is part of the reason why there's no really good central downtown focus as part of development. And I know we've spent the last couple of years with the 2050 plan and master planning and things like that, trying to knit together these areas. So I'm making comments about the 4 proposals
Yeah,
tonight.
next.
The first one is R.A. Smith Neighborhood Planners and Engberg Anderson. And the thing that struck me about this one is that they really don't have anything in there about people in the village. The main sentence that they say is also have relationships with many stakeholders, county, Richfield, property owners, MMSD developers from the area, but nothing about the residents. So I think that one should be discounted. The green bicycle one, the first thing in their proposal was about community metrics, focus on community-specific metrics that pertain to quality of life and economic growth. So I think that one should be given a closer look. The third one from Grafe talked a lot about the community and multiple choices and the best fit for the community in the current vision. And we all know they were involved within the last couple of years with the plan. The fourth one, MSA, they don't talk about people at all either much. So I think that one should be discounted. And I think you should look further at the Grafe one and the green bicycle one, my opinion. However, at the village board meeting, the interim engineering director, because we have no one in engineering, I think that's his title, suggested that the department needs 4 to 5 people because currently we are spending $3 to $4 million in engineering fees. We already have, we don't have anybody. If you do pass any of these master plans, there will be no one to review any of the work because we're not really sure when and if engineering is going to be added to the village based on the budgeting conversations that are coming up in September through November. So I think that there should be some consistency and that maybe we should consider self-performance of this planning process. We have a planner. We used to have an assistant planner. And it may be something that from the neighborhood meetings, which is a prerequisite and is an important part of this component, to at least start with that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? There will be opportunity for public hearing on 3 items tonight. This is for anything other than those 3 items. Trustee Miller.
Good evening, commissioners and David as Grand Commissioner.
Grand Poobah of the evening.
I just wanted to make a comment on the plans. I think that the response was very good and that most of the plans were concise and complete. I would have to chime in and if I get a vote, I would vote for Green Bicycle and Grafe for the mentioning of the historic value of the village of Germantown, as well as incorporating public opinion. I mean, we've got a full house here today. Thank you very much. Even though, I don't know, how many are developers, but thank you. So we have to concentrate on what the public wants, and we have to give them an opportunity to do so in advance notice. So I think it's extremely important that anyone that writes a proposal at least has our Village of Germantown residents included. I am concerned about the no engineer at this point. We're taking our last, anybody that needs a job in engineering, please chime in. We have applications available. Please note that we're taking applications till September 6th. So onboarding, et cetera, maybe October if we're lucky. Additionally, the village board was informed that we're going to have the start of probably our budget meeting for 2024 on the 9/18 meeting. So that's almost the end of September. And we are just going to be presented the 2022 audit. Not 2023, 2022 audit. So there will be adjustments to the 2024 budget. So the financial planner, our director of finances, Matt Uselding, said an estimate is we are in deficit by 900,000+ at this point. So please be cautious about the timeline of doing any development work and make sure you have anyone that you hire in your budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to come forward? Public comment? Anybody else? Seeing as none, I will move on to item 5, which, oh wait, I have one to read here. This comes from Katie Figgy, resident of Fond du Lac Avenue in Germantown. She wishes to have her information discussed on the Vertus Development multifamily housing. I oppose rezoning to multifamily housing proposed by Vertus. The space is too small for multifamily, too close to single-family housing. There is no view blocking features proposed between the current single-family homes. The drawings rendered do not accurately present the current space and surrounding single-family homes. I ask that this proposal be denied. Again, that was from Katie Figgy. And that is the only one I have? Okay, the other ones I have are for public hearing sections. So that'll bring us to section 5, item A. Hans Dawson, agent for Moraine Development LLC, property owner of West 218 North 11546 Appleton Avenue. Application to create an RS2 single-family residential plan development district pursuant, pursuant to section 17.15 and 17.27 of the zoning code, and 2, rezoning from the M4 mineral extraction, A2 agricultural, and RS2 single-family zoning districts into a newly created RS2 PDD zoning district. And 3, a certified survey map to combine 6 parcels for purposes of restoring and redeveloping the former gravel mine property into a 126.5 acre, 15-unit residential condominium and conservation development. This is for a public hearing and action. So, Director Retzlaff, take us away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hans Dawson, agent for Marine Development LLC. The property owner is requesting approval of the applications you just detailed in order to create a planned development district for purposes of restoring and redeveloping the site, former gravel mining site, into a 126 acre residential conservation development located on Appleton Avenue, as highlighted in red on the screen. A couple of graphics, existing condition aerial photo of the site. You can see the Quarry Lake in the central portion of the property. Here's another graphic, a fairly recent aerial photo, oblique view from the south, looking at the property, again highlighted in red, Appleton Avenue running along the left side of the photograph. In terms of restoration, the site, the proposal is to restore the 126 acre gravel pit. A good portion, if not nearly all of the site, will be touched in some fashion to create a couple of upland restoration areas for future residential development. Those areas are shown in yellow on the north and south sides of the lake. There's a shoreline restoration proposal around the central quarry lake with some amenities, including a 6-foot wide gravel path around the lake and throughout the property. Woodland restoration on the west side of the quarry lake, and some landscaped berms will be installed along Appleton Avenue. The intention is to maintain and improve the 2 access driveways that go into the property to provide access to the 2 residential areas, again, one on the north and one on the south side of the quarry lake. This graphic shows the master development plan, a little bit more detail. This plan would serve as the general development plan, basically the same thing as called for in our plan development district regulations. This plan reflects residential development proposed on the north side, 12 single-family dwelling units in the north restoration area, 3 single-family dwelling units in the south. The 2 areas would be served by separate on-site sanitary sewer systems, a community septic system, if you will, one on the north and one on the south is shown in the graphic. With respect to the specific applications that are on the agenda this evening, a 1-lot certified survey map to combine 6 separate but adjacent parcels owned by Marine Development into 1 parcel totaling approximately 126 acres. And the CSM also dedicates some additional right-of-way along Appleton Avenue and Meeker Hill Lane. This graphic shows the proposed CSM. The rezoning and plan development district applications include creating a new plan development district for the 126 acre property, and then rezoning those, the land, the 6 parcels, if you will, from their current zoning districts into the plan development district. And as you can see on this graphic, there are 3, the property has 3 separate zoning districts that apply. The lion's share, M4 mineral extraction. There's a small area along Appleton Avenue, a couple of parcels that are actually RS2 single family, and the south portion of the property is zoned A2 agricultural. Again, the rezoning would change those designations to the plan development district name. We haven't given this one a name just yet. The Moraine Development Plan Development District, I guess at this point, will suffice. The development master plan that I mentioned earlier would be the general development plan for the PDD. The RS2 single family district is essentially the underlying zoning district. The intention is to develop the overall site as a conservation design development. Again, with the clustering of a total of up to 15 single-family dwelling units in those 2 upland restoration areas. At this point in time, the proposal is for a condominium form of ownership, so there wouldn't necessarily be individual lots, but the single-family homes would be units, if you will, in the condominium in the master plan as shown. More than 40% of the area we set aside for common open space to be owned in common by the property owners of the units. And overall, the intention is to create a private recreation area with the quarry lake, trails, and the conservation areas that will be part of the restoration. As I mentioned, the rezoning into the new PDD would change the the M4, the A2, and the RS2 zone parcels into the new PDD. In terms of specific comments. The proposed development is consistent with the 2050 plan, Meeker Hill neighborhood designation for this particular area. The allowable density in the Meeker Hill area for residential is 1 dwelling unit per 3 acres with a conservation design, or 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres if a traditional subdivision is created. The proposed density here with just 15 units over 126 acres is 1 dwelling unit per 8.4 gross acres. So well below the maximum density allowed for the property with a conservation design proposal. A couple other comments. Additional right-of-way may be required for Appleton Avenue. We're still waiting to get final word from the DOT with respect to Appleton Avenue. There is going to be a need for some minor additional right-of-way along Meeker Hill Lane to meet the ultimate build-out requirement. And one item of note, important note, that was not previously discussed, and that is that the Germantown Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan designates this particular area for a future park or shared open space. Here's a map from the current 2021 to 26 recreation plan. It's the service area map, and I've highlighted the boundary of the property, the solid black line on the central west part of the village. And there's a purple star there, and the purple star, according to the legend, is for future park or shared public space. And I'll just read a note from that legend. Those areas not served by a public park should look to include new parkland, privately shared open space, or have planned trail connections that would connect residential areas to existing parks or river corridors. This is something that is not reflected in the master development plan at this point, and that's something that should be discussed with the Park Commission prior to us making a final decision on the planned development district itself. I would point out that our subdivision code does require the dedication or at least the reservation of land for a public park on an adopted comprehensive plan. In this case, our CORP, Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. But there currently is no detailed plan for a park of this type or even a trail connection. Also, with regard to trails, the subdivision code provides for sidewalks along abutting roads and streets in a development if it's required by the village. The current village bikeway and trail network that's also reflected in the CORP doesn't show sidewalks along Appleton or Meeker Hill, nor does the Washington County Bikeway and Trail Plan. It doesn't indicate any sort of trail or sidewalk along Appleton or Meeker Hill in this particular location. So again, these items should be discussed with the Park Commission so that a decision can be made with regard to the park or shared open space provision in the CORP and how that will be addressed as part of the Moraine Development Plan Development District, if it is at all. Finally, if you recall, whenever we discuss plan development districts, we talk about their intent, and in the intent section, one of the statements is that granting a developer a plan development district allows them flexibility and latitude with regard to the underlying zoning district restrictions and requirements. It also speaks to sort of in exchange for that flexibility, that the development itself will provide a higher level of development material quality and amenities. And that's a specific phrase that's used in there. And over the years, the provision of an amenity has been generally interpreted to mean some sort of specific development feature or design consideration that is intended to benefit the wider community and not just the developer or the residents, if you will, in this case, of the proposed development. Not including right-of-way dedication, there's really not a specific amenity that's pointed to or pointed out as part of this particular development to satisfy that higher level of amenity provision. So that's something that I think we need to discuss, and maybe that's something that's discussed in the context of the park or open space requirement, the sidewalks, that sort of thing. A couple last comments. Public Works, they've identified some minor technical corrections to the certified survey map, including a mention of possibly additional right-of-way requirement. And the fire department has indicated that they will require a dry hydrant connection to the quarry lake be installed as part of fire service for that particular development. With that said, the staff recommendation includes approval of the certified survey map to combine the 6 parcels owned by Moraine Development, subject to 3 conditions. And with respect to the PDD and rezoning, approve the creation of an RS2 PDD for the 126-acre Moraine Development property and rezoning as proposed, subject to 5 requirements and conditions listed in the staff report. Before we go to public hearing, I believe David Mortensen with Ari Smith and/or Hans Dawson with Moraine Development are here. I don't know if either of you want to come forward and add to what I've said before we go to public hearing. If you do, certainly come on forward and
property. I do have a couple comments. So regarding all of the specific recommendations, we're generally pretty good with those. So the CSM, that's kind of a technical thing with the DOT. There's actually going to be parts of the land we'll be getting back and parts of it that'll go back to the state. And then same thing, I believe on the village side, we're already covered there. The restrictions proposed are generally pretty good. All the erosion, stormwater, all the technical stuff, no real issues there. There was a request for a nuisance ordinance. We don't have any issue with that. I mean, we're not intending to turn this into sort of like a party ground, and I usually like to be to bed before 9 o'clock anyway, so that wouldn't conflict with us. So I guess I'll look to staff for some suggestions on what a nuisance ordinance means. I've never written one, but I assume it's decibels after a certain amount of time or so, something like that is my guess. But what I wanted to talk about mostly is the sort of the park and public space, and then the amenities part of this property. And I want to give you a little bit of history on the project. Could you toggle back to the ortho view, the aerial? Maybe Lori, if you can look at that. This site was originally owned, just one more forward, please. This site was originally owned by the Mergett family, and they had it for a very long time. They sold to a road contractor named James Cape and Sons, who went bankrupt in 2006. And before they went bankrupt, they were in the process of developing a reclamation plan for this site, but it was never actually adopted or approved. So this site never actually had a reclamation plan. And when they went bankrupt, obviously they ceased operations, and the site was left in this condition, which is definitely not how you leave a site. I mean, we have some pretty extremely strict laws in the state, and our other operations don't look like this, even though we're actively digging them. So when we bought this site, we bought it out of bankruptcy court in Racine County in 2006. And we bought it mostly just to kind of own the land. We thought we might develop the gravel pit, kind of keep the gravel pit going, but it never actually made sense for our company. And we've never operated this site, and we've never made any money off of this site. And so what we have now is we sort of purchased a liability, which is a very unique sort of a thing. We really didn't purchase as much an asset, like when you buy a normal piece of ground, it actually is an asset. We actually purchased what ended up being a liability, and we now have all of our quotes in to fix this site, to fix the grading, and to revegetate it, because as you can see, it's a lot of bare gravel, and then reseeding and vegetating a bare gravel site is expensive. I mean, we're literally talking millions of dollars of reclamation work that would not go into a normal site. And I think that's all really instructive, because the intent of a PDD is something that I actually totally get. It's, you know, a developer would come into the village and say, hey, we want a little bit of grace from the normal restrictions. So in exchange for that, we'll offer a public good or a public amenity. And that makes sense, right? Because they're getting something valuable in exchange. In this site, I think fixing the site is that public amenity. And why I'm saying that in particular is this is kind of our current family swimming hole. And we have a tremendous amount of trespassing when we go on the site. So when we want to go for a swim, about every other time, it usually involves a call to the police just to kind of get people off the land. We've had things stolen from the property. We have vandalism on the property. And it's, when you think about turning something that is a liability, putting all this, treasure of our family into it, with the goal that this would be a family space, we're going to build our houses here. We're not planning on selling these lots to anybody but our family. The idea that we would put all that into it, and then have to kick people off of our front lawn or off of our pond, it makes the project a little bit harder to swallow, right? We think that developing it for our purpose, we think can be really a net positive for the community relative to what its purpose is now. And I guess I would ask for a little flexibility in concept on what we mean by sort of a public space or a park or access to that. Because I just want you guys to imagine by analogy, if you bought a property that was distressed and covered with junk, and you put a lot of money in to fix it up, and you built a nice house, and somebody said, cool, that turned out really good, and your lawn looks great, I'm just gonna pull in and I'm just gonna hang out in your back lawn. Like, that's pretty cool. I think I should like to do that, right? It's just I guess I'm asking you to see it a little bit from my perspective of this is where we're going to put our house, and I'd rather not turn my house into a park. So now that said, I do understand, again, the value of the flexibility to allow us to do this condo concept, because it will benefit my family, right? We're going to have this big parcel, but we're going to cluster the houses together, which is not the norm. Most people sort of build these 5-acre lots so the houses can be spread apart. And I'm very open to something like, maybe we could make a donation to the park system, right? Maybe to improve the Homestead Park or something nearby that would be close to this development. And then that way it kind of puts the value back in the park system. We're still sharing with the community, but maybe we just have less trespassing pressure on this property. And that's kind of my main ask tonight and discussion. And, I can wait till after the public hearing, and then we can kind of maybe chat about that back and forth. So. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Is there anybody else from the developer that wants to? Oh. Okay. Then. I hereby notice is hereby given that the public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at Germantown Village Hall located at North 112 West 17001 Mequon Road in Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on the following date and time. That would be Monday, August 14th at 6:30 p.m. or later. The purpose of said hearing is to hear all parties, their attorneys or agents for and against the applications filed to 1, create an RS2 single-family residential plan development district pursuant to section 17.15 and 17.27 of the zoning code, and 2, rezone the following described property from M1 mineral extraction, A2 agricultural, and RS2 single-family zoning districts into a newly created RS2 PDD zoning district for the purpose of restoring and developing the former gravel mine operation into an 87-acre private residential site. The applicant is Hans Dawson, agent for Moraine Development LLC, property owner. The address of the property is West 218 North 11546 Appleton Avenue. And then we have the property description. With that, I will call the public hearing to order. First thing I will do is read the items that have been sent forward from emailed for us. Okay. This comes from Eric Roberts, to whom it may concern, Appleton Avenue Storage located at West 219. Is that the right one? Yeah, it is. Appleton Avenue would like to give its support to the development by Hans Dawson. The development directly borders our eastern and southern border, and we are excited to see the development of this site. Eric Roberts. Second one, marine proposal. This is from Leslie Bensavenga. As a resident across from the property, we have already experienced a great deal of disruption with the recent activity in this area, with a lot of truck traffic in and out seemingly to have brought in fill starting prior to the building of the nearby storage facility. While we understand and support progress and growth for the village, it disappoints us to have this potentially happening right across from us. We enjoy the relatively quiet, except for the aforementioned traffic. The country-like atmosphere, the quiet nature, quiet, mature neighbors around us. We wouldn't want to see that change significantly with multi-family homes with young kids or teens that can bring mischief with them. I know it sounds like it's not in my backyard or get off my lawn, Grumps, but there's a reason we chose to move out to a less populated area. We can't make it to the hearing for various reasons. We hope there's a good and fair discussion and decision made. Again, that was Ray and Leslie Benson Venga. Those are the only two I got. Okay. With that, is this the one that you wanted to talk about? Okay, I'll give you first crack at it. Go up to the microphone, push the little button on the bottom mic that says push at the top of it, and wait for the light to turn off. Right at the, Jan, can you help her out?
Okay, it's kind of.
It's invisible.
Okay. I live in Millbrook subdivision, which I am right down the road from where you will be developing. I truly feel sorry for you about how you were explaining it. I understand completely about people being in your yard. Lived in Milwaukee for a long, long time. That's why I moved out here. I love how she was saying that, the country life, the outdoorsy, I don't want that change. I like waking up in the morning and seeing the deer in my backyard and all that other stuff. My main concern is another thing is living on there, the dump trucks run back and forth on Mequon Road. Mequon Road is trashed. This is my thing. After all of this construction is done, who's going to fix Mequon Road that's already trashed already? Is that going to be something that's going to be put into the plan? Because once all them dump trucks are running back and forth, that's just gonna wreak more havoc on Mequon Road. I get where you're coming from. I guess I would like to see that developed a little bit more, but not to so much of a point of we're losing our nature. That's all I want to say. And that's my main concern is Mequon Road though, because it's trashy already.
Okay.
Is this going to be put into the proposal once all this construction traffic is moving back and forth? Is it going to be fixed? So, but I do feel for you and I understand that issue of, hey, get out of my yard kind of thing. I'm just saying, if you could keep it more woodsy and whatever, that would probably be more, like that lady was saying, we're out here for the environment, the peace, the quiet, and understanding. So I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
You want to develop it because you own it, but then we also, who moved out here for the peace and quiet, want to keep the peace and quiet. So if there can be like a
Happy medium.
happy medium for that, I'm all for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Can we get your name and address for the record? Gotta go back up there.
Steinman, W210N1190 Mount Brook Drive.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to come forward on this topic only? Yes, sir. Please step forward to the mic. Give us your name and address for the record.
I'm Gene Wish, North 113, West 21692 Bark Lake Road. I would just like a little bit more clarification on the type of houses that are going to be going. This says cluster houses. I don't understand what they are.
Cluster is just pushing the houses together. So instead of having 4 houses on 20 acres, 5-acre lots and spreading them apart, you put 5 acres on 20 houses, but you put all the houses together and leave the 20 acres around it open for natural environment.
Okay, so
So
these
cluster
are,
housing is a planning practice, not a type of architecture.
I didn't know if they were going to be like side by side with joined garages or.
I don't know. We'll get into that discussion when we have our discussion.
And my second concern is I live right off of Bark Lake Road. Now, one of the proposed entranceways is right across from Bark Lake Road. That is already a dangerous area because at the top of Meeker Hill, that traffic coming up there, it says 45 miles an hour, but they don't come up that hill at 45 miles an hour.
Okay.
And with that crest of the hill, That's going to be right at that intersection. So that would be my consideration, my warning. It's just where that entrance is off of Bark Lake Road. It's a concerning area.
Okay.
Okay, and that's all I have.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wishing to come forward on this topic? Please state your name and address for the record.
And W28 and 11431 Appleton Avenue.
Thank you.
Germantown. Okay, I'm all in favor of the 15 single-family houses, but the debris in the roadway this last year, it's not my job to police the companies going in there to clean up the roadways. It was horrible. I have debris in my yard, but track it all the way through my driveway, and that goes in the house. So I just want to make it clear who is going to be in charge of calling somebody to clean up the roadway every day.
Okay.
So that's my concern.
All right. We'll talk about it with the developer. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? For the Moraine Development Group. Yes, sir.
Scott Heffley, W159 and 11514 Old Farm Road, Germantown, live nowhere near this property. But know that Germantown has some abandoned quarries from years past when we did quarry a lot of stone. So I was here with the original presentation. The reclamation that this group is trying to do is going to be, could be millions of dollars, honestly. If you want to reclaim shoreline and change it back to the way it is, right now it is a liability because people are wandering in there and swimming and they might drown. That is a liability. If you put some people on site, you know, family, they're going to watch out for it. They're going to protect it. Okay. And they're going to reclaim it and plant vegetation and do a lot of things, very expensive things. So sure, it'll be private, but it'll become a reclaimed jewel. And I'm based on what the gentleman was talking about at the last meeting, this meeting, they're looking to make it more of a conservancy, albeit for the people that actually will live there and pay the price to be in the houses, mostly family. So I don't think he's in there to destroy, you know, yes, there's going to be traffic on the roads and I don't like roads getting beat up either. But, you know, I think it's a short-term thing where we allow this to happen and then it's private and you're not going to have those problems that you're dealing with now. And there's not going to be a lot of traffic with 15 homes. That's not a lot of traffic. And we're not talking about a massive subdivision. So I'm 100% in favor for it. And that's all I have to say.
Anybody else wishing to come forward? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Richard Ehrlich, West 216, North 11718 Appleton Avenue. I've got 40 acres just adjacent to it. And I'm all in favor of it. It's, you know, it definitely needs something. And I've had trespassers come through the gravel pit, cut across my field to head on over to Piggly Wiggly or whatever. So, I mean, trespassing going back and forth and I'm kind of an elevated position. A lot of times when I'm out on my property, I can see down to the lake and I see people out there fishing and with their dogs and whatever. So I know it's inevitable that somebody's gonna drown in there, party too much and who knows what. To get it developed, and if it is done, what he's talking about with the development for a little bit nature around there. I mean, there is a lot of deer in that gravel pit right now, you know, and if it gives them a little bit more cover, fine, you know, the benefit to everybody. So I'm all in for.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wishing to come forward? Come on forward, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Scott Stevlinson. I live at N97W14997 Burning Bush Court. More of a question, is the water that becomes private?
Yes.
Won't have any public access?
Correct.
Okay. That's it.
Yep.
I have no opinion.
Think of it as one big lot for your house and he wants it all. It's all it is. Except you're going to put a bunch of houses on there for the family. Anybody else wishing to come forward? No one else? One more chance. Anybody wishing to come forward for the public comment? I will close the public hearing and bring this to the commissioners. Is there anything further you'd like to say to the board, Director Retzloff?
No, not at this point.
Okay, commissioners, discussions, comments, motions, questions? We'll start on the far end, Mr. Tarantino.
The road on the further south entrance, is that an entrance that goes all the way through? Where it says access, but the cul-de-sac is shown,
On the.
Across Bark,
Talking about on the south with the dashed.
from
Yeah.
Bark Lake.
Yeah.
yes,
Serve two purposes. There's currently a cell phone tower there and they have an easement. They're going to have to keep that.
yeah.
And then it will be, we're going to cut in an access for 3 home spaces, but I want to add a little flavor to that, kind of specific to my family. So right now it's in this area is my mom, me and my sister, and then that's it. So until our kids maybe have kids and they're ready to build, we're probably talking 3 potential homes in the next 20 years. And that'll all be on the north side of the property. So in terms of practical density for the next generation or so, that's pretty much what it's going to be, is our intent. So there, other than the cell phone service trucks, they'll be accessing through that for the next decade or the next couple of decades.
So in response to the one man's question, concern about the vehicular access to and from that part of the site, it's going to be very limited because there's only 3 homes there.
Yeah.
And then the utility truck for the pole. Okay.
And
Right.
then I kind of tying into that, to answer Tony's, concern about the trucks. We are done taking in fill here. We had a particular job. So the storage unit, we worked with them and one of our customers. Their storage unit, if you remember that property, that was the old Miller Landscaping, and the back of it was in rough shape. If you're familiar with that site, it was very in rough shape. So we worked with the storage unit because we knew we had this like weird lot line. So we brought in fill to fill up that area and then to sort of tie it into our topography. And the contractor that was running that didn't perform well. That wasn't our operation. So we ended up kicking them off the property. We ended up with enough fill on site, but we ended up pulling them off the property. But we're now completely finished bringing any fill in or taking material out of there. So all of the cuts and all the fills on this project are balanced, meaning for everywhere that we're cutting a slope down to make it smooth, we're filling in somewhere else to make it smooth. So it's within like 1% of cut fill balance, and we'll just make it up on site. So we're not the only thing that will be coming on site are, the trucks that are bringing on the excavators, the trucks, the bulldozers, and then the fuel and then the employees of the grading contractor. And then seeding companies. So the seeding is a multi-year thing because we're planting all these natives, and that's a multi-year process to get that to take. So there'll be all that ground cover. But as far as like trucks coming and going with volume of dirt, that's actually not part of this plan. That's all done, and now it's internally balanced. Sorry, yeah.
Could you explain a little bit more about the sequencing? Where you're going to start first and end last, and the time frame for the grading activity? Because presumably there's going to be some vehicles out there driving around, doing some grading, kicking up some dust, making noise, that sort of thing.
Yeah. The grading, so there's a couple steps. We are currently, we worked with the DNR for a pumping plan. We're lowering the elevation of the lake about 10 feet. Because we wanted to adjust the shoreline to make it more stable, because it was, like I said, it was just left as an unstable gravel face. So we're lowering the pond elevation. We're going to be grading all around that. And then that's happening right now. The very next phase is a lot of invasive species have come onto the site. So there's a lot of tree removal and weed removal that's going to happen. We're hoping to start that literally within the next couple of weeks or so. The grading itself, because the grading is all already permitted. It's all part of the M4 district, so it's kind of an automatic. That we're hoping to begin in the second week of September. And then that will go till the middle of November. It's actually a pretty fast job because we got to get the seed down. So we're putting on a cover crop in 2023. So all the grading, all the pumping, all the water work, all the subterranean grading so that we can make fish areas, that's all going to be done in this fall. And then the cover crop, which is I think like an annual rye or an annual oats, is going to go in this year. Then starting next year, then we start the multi-year native vegetation process. So that's going to be smaller equipment. So you're talking like industrial mowers that'll kind of cut what grew up, and then seeding equipment. So these will be tanks and seed trucks that come in and they spray the slopes with the natives. And that's a multi-year reclamation because adding vegetation that's native to a sandy environment that isn't native to this exact part of the world, there's some challenge there. And we've had some very good consultants, but it's a multi-year process to get this done. So then we are hoping to develop the entrance road, so that'll be paved. And then we do have shown a little like boathouse. So this is literally going to be like a kitchen, a table, and then like a little living room, like the size of this, just so we can go there and kind of hang out if it starts to rain. That's our like we're hoping to build that maybe next year. And then the houses would be maybe a couple of years after that, because we just want to get everything established and vegetated. And we haven't even thought about like what the houses might look like. It just, but they would be, to answer another question, they would be single family houses. And you're exactly right. The clustered just means they're closer than the normal density, but they would be like a regular home, like we like ranch houses. So like a ranch with a garage kind of a thing. So
Separate, independent, not townhouses, not
Right.
an apartment building.
Yeah.
15 single detached individual homes.
Yeah, and then just again, practically, like our kind of vision for the next couple of years is, my mom is retirement age, so we're kind of hoping she could be in the middle, then my sister and I on the side. And then as she ages, we can kind of like, just look after each other. kind of
Sure.
Things.
Sure. And for those in the audience, if you Google Earth, look at Highland Road across the street from MATC. Somebody did this exact same thing there, and you see there's only 5 houses, long drive going in, restored lake, and it's all restored with prairie. So that's a vision. I think if you want to understand what he's trying to do, I think that's what he's trying to do. Okay. So, Mr. Tarrant,
I
yes.
guess, if it's okay, I think Lori had some questions on the country and the trees. And again, just to emphasize, we're putting it back to the native. So we're going to start out with the grasses and stuff, because that's sort of the first thing you go. And then we're going to be adding native trees in places that make sense. There's a lot of invasive trees. So over the course of the decade, you'll see natives go up. And then as we get some natives taking, then we're going to take down some of the invasives. So I don't want to just denude the whole site. We're going to kind of leave a perimeter of what's there, because at least it's green. And then as the natives come up, we'll slowly thin out. So it'll be like a migration from invasives to natives. So the site's going to be far more green than it is today, like for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Tarantino, did you have anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay. Mr. Leszewski, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to put it on the motion on the table, I guess, to start. We would approve the combination of the 6 parcels, subject to the 3 conditions.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the certified survey map to combine the 6 parcels with the 3 conditions. We have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion?
So what the question I have is going to the PDD and some of the public use issues. I guess this is a question for you, Planner Retzloff. What's the nature of the need for a PDD here versus, why don't you just rezone it to like RS2 and kind of have at it?
Well, as we discussed back in April, the site is really conducive to the use of a PDD for clustering of the home site purposes. There's really no realistic approach to dividing into 1 acre lots, 2 acre lots. You could do it in some ways. You just end up with weird shapes, and that would become yard area that would be under single ownership as opposed to common ownership of the open space areas.
Okay, so it really just sounds like it facilitates the cluster development.
It really, that's all it's for.
Okay, so I guess my other thing was just a comment that when you look at this land today, you'd call it almost a brownfield if it was contaminated, because it's been so denuded with the topsoil being scraped off. It is, I would agree, it's an economic liability. And when I look at what you're doing here is really adding value, not only intrinsically to it, but environmentally and ecologically and things. So I think it's a really cool plan. It would be nice to see the public piece somehow, a trail or something through here, but I do get their point in that the value being added is taking a piece of land, which right now is a economic sinkhole, and bringing it up to kind of above par. I do get that argument. I think there's valid validity to it. The question I have is, it still would be nice to see, given the nature of the PDD, something, some amenity added at the public level.
Further discussion? Mr. Williams?
Actually, I just had a question on the ability to turn this into the single family homes using the sanitary septic system. The code, Rick Retzlaff says, and under 1802, lots made, altered, or filled within the preceding 7 years should not be divided into building sites to be used on-site soil absorption, septic or sewage disposal. So I'm just want to clarify, if they're altering this property, are they?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
So if you look at it's actually on this drawing, the very north part of the parcel, and then in the center, there's like a shaded gray. That area hasn't been touched, and we've had that tested for septic, and it's a big enough of an area to be a community septic for this development. And we're actually going to be cordoning that off, and we're not touching it. So it actually won't be disturbed, that area. So that's been actually carved out by our engineer to meet that exact thing. That's exactly right. You can't scuff up the land and then perk it, right? It's not really like a best practice.
Okay.
Right, and that's one of the requirements under number 2 of the PDD recommended conditions, that some evidence be provided to address the land suitability question.
And fortunately, that's all been performed and tested, and our engineer has all those documents. So.
Okay. Mr. Tarantino?
Well, I like the idea of, like you said, possibly the public impact would be doing something for another park or the park system or whatever. But if this had a public component, where would the people even be coming from or going to? Say it had a trail around it.
Across the street?
You know, I mean, someone's just gonna take a walk, and by default, they're gonna wanna go by the water. I don't know. To your point, I like what, I would rather see it go towards the park system, however that looks, or however you decide that, what that value would be. But how you have it here, I like the way that is.
Wait, sir, no, we can't have comments from the public.
So that was it. I like the way it's laid out here. I understand why, with the investment that they'd be making, why they'd want to keep it for themselves.
Right. Okay. Further discussion? Questions? Comments? Okay, we have a motion to approve the certified survey with the 3 conditions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. We have a motion for the second part.
I will make a motion that we approve wait a minute, I'm off track here. Creating a RS2 PDD for the 126 acre Moraine Development LLC property as proposed, subject to the following 5 conditions.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just point out that number 3 reads, prior to village board adoption of the specific conditions and restrictions resolution for the PDD, the developer and park commission should discuss the specifics of what, if any, future park site or shared open space area can or will be dedicated or reserved for future acquisition pursuant to section 18 of the subdivision code. I guess at this point, any information or recommendation or guidance you can provide with regard to that issue of, the amenity or public benefit, and more specifically, the park or shared open space site. If it's the collective thought of the plan commission that, as Mr. Dawson was pointing out, that restoration, and in the course of doing so, spending millions of dollars to restore the property and remove some of the hazards that currently exist is a public benefit, and that's sufficient, then I think we should point that out so that that guidance can go on to the park commission as well as the board, who ultimately make the final decision with regard to creating the PDD.
Commissioners? Mr.
Trustee
Leshewski.
Baum, go
Oh,
ahead.
Mr. Leshewski first, then I'll go to Mr. Shadid.
You know, it would be cool if you could put a trail around it or walking path. But I mean, I spent a lot of time on the park commission, and you put a path around it. Next thing you know, people are going to want to go near the water. They're going to be fishing, they're going to be swimming. God knows what next, parties, etc. So that's a challenge to say, what kind of access do you give the public to this site without it becoming essentially a nuisance down the road, where it goes beyond what the original intentions were. If there was maybe a trail that goes near the water, but not near enough, I mean, where it's a viewing thing, you could view it, or have a small area where maybe people could picnic or something. But on its own merits, again, given the amount of restoration going to the site, where I know there's been some comments about the wildlife and whatnot, but I'll tell you what, when this is finished, there'll be a heck of a lot more wildlife, whether it's, you know, flora and fauna and bugs, you know, native species that you're not going to have there with just sand and water today. It's going to attract waterfowl, potentially fish, etc. So it'll contribute to the ecosystems. So again, given the nature of the investment, I see that by itself, if that's the best you can do, that's pretty good. And I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah, I think the only middle ground would be a feature that wouldn't necessarily be intrusive to the development, but could provide a public benefit passing by, and that would be the equivalent of a sidewalk. But as I pointed out, neither the village nor the county bike or trail plan has a sidewalk shown for Appleton Avenue. So, you know, while the statement is made regularly in other cases when we have a bicycle and sidewalk plan, in this case, it truly is, it would be a path or sidewalk to nowhere that's currently planned. So I don't know if even recommending something like that makes a lot of sense.
We've gone years with sidewalks to nowhere because we used to do that on plan commission all the time.
Right, but there is a plan.
Yeah.
In the corp, and requiring those segments to be installed when development comes forward makes sense. Ultimately, those pieces will fill in, but in this case, it's not even on the plan. I mean, there's no plan for sidewalk or trail.
Okay, any further discussion on that topic from the commissioners? Mr. Williams.
I guess I do have a comment, and that is, I'm going to go back to the history that you had shared, and that is you bought this out of bankruptcy, I'm assuming at a distressed value, with the intention that you were going to generate some type of profit for your business. You didn't buy this with the intention of developing it as it is now, and it didn't end up working out for what you bought it for your business purpose. And now you're trying to turn it into this now. So I kind of see it as you, to some extent, bought the liability when you bought the property. So I mean, for us, for the village, not to get some benefit out of giving you the opportunity to turn this into a PDD. I mean, it's not, I don't see it as a village's liability to start with, to have to give that up. I mean, that's my opinion on the situation. So.
Yeah, it is an investment that didn't turn out, right? And we, you know, the alternatives are to leave it like it is forever. And I hope there's a little empathy for that. We're not like selfish people, right? I mean, I'd like to invest in the park system, but I just want you to like, I'll just give you a little insight. Two quick stories. My brother-in-law was out here. We have a little canoe that we take out, and he put his tackle box on the shore. And this tackle box was given to him by his grandpa, and it had all of his grandpa's lures in there. And they fished together. This was like a family heirloom. And he grabbed the tackle that he needed and the rod that he needed, and he went on his canoe, and he was about halfway out. And somebody came out of from the east and looked around and then saw him out there. And my brother-in-law said, "Hey, get out of here." And he literally ran up and grabbed his grandpa's tackle box and then stole it and ran off the property. And like, that sticks with you, you know what I mean? And and again, I have a good life, but I work a lot of hours, and my sister works a lot of hours. And I want you to imagine coming home. We work 12-hour days, and my dad did and my grandpa did, and it's cool, right? But like, when you come home, do you want to call the cops and have a fight like every day? I mean, and I promise you, That's what happens, especially if we make it nicer, right? I mean, I just want you to think about every day you come home and you're just like, their home is kind of like your happy place, right? And I just don't have to call the cops every day so that I can enjoy something that we spent millions of dollars to build. Again, I'm not a charity case, but like, I just want you to think about it from our perspective. And I hope you'll see that like, if we invest in the park system, we are sort of investing in the community and sort of getting some value, trading some value for the PDD. So, yeah, it's just, that would be hard to stomach.
I will tell you, there are some significant needs that the park system has right now, and I would encourage, if not make a motion, to have you talk to the Parks Department and see which of their needs you would like to gift to the village or something like that to help them out. So if somebody could make a motion to that effect, or should I make a motion to that effect? Seeing as none, I will make a motion that it's number 3 on here is prior to the village board adopting the specific conditions or restrictions of a resolution, the developer and the village parks commission should discuss the specifics of what, if any, future park site or shared open space area can be dedicated or reserved for future acquisition. I'm not sure if it's dedicating some land or talking to the parks and here's some other needs that the parks have for other parks that we do have that need assistance. I would like them to have that kind of discussion.
Well, you could put that language in there. I mean,
I will make a motion to what I said being added to item number 3. You got all that, Lori? You want me to repeat it?
Could we make it somewhat proportional to the cost of a path construction or a little park construction?
Yes, you could go talk to the Parks Department. I don't know what the dollar value that we were talking about, that you were thinking about, Jeff, but I think between the planner, the Parks Director, and you guys can come to meeting the minds of what in-kind thing you can do. So
That's fair.
that better? Got that now? Okay, that's my motion.
did you want to add
Yes,
the phrase or other alternative
sure.
contributions to the park system
Yes,
following park site or shared open space area?
or other in-kind contributions,
Something like that?
something to that effect. Yep. That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Trustee Baum.
Yes, sir. Mr. Schmidt.
A comment on that, I guess, a bit, and what I wanted to say before. I guess I think of this in terms of any of us who improve our property and then be expected to turn part of it over to the public. These people own the property, whatever way whatever they intended originally, they still own the property. They want to use it for their personal use. If they're good enough to do something to help the park system, that's fine, but I would not be in favor of forcing them to do that.
I look at it as a condition of a PDD. As a PDD, we always look for us giving you the flexibility and the latitude of the code changes that you want. What are you going to do to benefit the village in this development? Since there's nothing in this development that they would be allowing the village to partake in, if we could do it somewhere else, that'd be fine. Director Retzloff.
I would just remind you earlier, I made the statement about the subdivision code requiring the dedication of parkland that's shown on a comprehensive plan for the village. There's some of that too. We do have a comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. It shows a future park site location in this vicinity. In fact, if you look closely at the map, probably that star on their plan, is in the middle of the quarry lake. And I think reasonably so, the thought was at some point this site would be restored and might be used for a public purpose. And that's probably why that future park site was plopped on there. Certainly not knowing at the time that the owner would want to develop it for a private recreation facility. But there is that provision in the code that to be dealt with as well.
Okay. Thank you. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm
Opposed?
It's the amendment.
That's the amendment that I made. Yes. Okay, the amendment passes. All in favor. And then let's go back to the original motion to approve the RS2 zoning PDD. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We look forward to the development.
Just to point out that this is a recommendation that goes on to the village board. I don't know exactly what meeting, but we'll have to work in some park commission discussion in the interim as well.
Okay, let me get my bearings straight here. Okay, that will bring us to item B, which is the Carter Schmitz Training System LLC, agent for Ozaki Development Corporation, property owner of West 188 North 11770 Maple Road, Unit 5, conditional use permit application for an indoor health or recreation establishment pursuant to section 17.33, parent 3, parent H, and section 17.29, parent 1, parent KK of the village zoning. There is a public hearing and action on this item. Director Etzloff.
Carter Schmitz, agent for the property owner, and the Carter Schmitz Training Systems business operation is looking for approval of a conditional use permit to operate a what I term a human performance and physical fitness training and coaching service business from the property. The site is shown on the screen on Maple Drive. The suite area within the building, approximately 3,200 square feet, that would be used for training room with indoor turf, squat racks, weights, exercise machines, and other various physical fitness training equipment. Again, the services, generally speaking, human performance and physical fitness training and coaching services would be conducted on site and indoor. No outside activities are proposed. The hours of operation, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Daily, Monday through Saturday, with 1 to 2 employees. These photos were taken from the application that are comparable to the type of facility that Mr. Schmitz is proposing for the site. I would point out that the zoning for the property is M1 Limited Industrial. The M1 district does allow commercial uses allowed in the B2 district that with a conditional use permit, if the planning commission deems them to be supportive and compatible with other business park uses. Indoor health and recreation establishments are an allowed use in the B2 district, and so they could be allowed in the M1 district as well with a conditional use permit. The proposed training operation is similar to other B2 allowed businesses that have been granted CUPs previously in the M1 district, most notably the Red Line Canine Training Center right next door, and other various martial arts training, childcare facilities, and the like that have been approved in the M1 district. The staff recommendation is to approve the conditional use permit, subject to 7 conditions. But before we go to public hearing, Carter Schmitz is here, and I'd ask him to come forward. I know he would like to say a few words about his proposed operation.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate taking a few minutes of your time today. My name is Carter Schmitz. I'm the founder and head coach of Carter Schmitz Training Systems, CSTS for short. We are an athlete performance community, athlete training community, proposing to put in this athlete training facility into the industrial park. We specialize in working with youth, middle school, as well as high school athletes, helping to prepare them for sport, both physically as well as beyond the physical sense as well, helping them to strengthen not only their bodies, but also create an empowering kind of strength that will transfer outside of the gym as well to all aspects of their lives, be it in the classroom, be it with their jobs, be it with their families at home, et cetera, et cetera. We will utilize a holistic training approach, a combination of strength training, plyometric-based training, mobility training, stability, balance, et cetera, et cetera. We will make the environment welcoming for all athletes of all genders, all ages, all sports, to give them the facility and a community that they can feel empowered within and they can grow within as well. A little bit of my background. I've been a sports performance coach for over 5 years now, going back to the Minneapolis area where I worked at a few different private training facilities as well as universities before relocating back to Germantown where I grew up, born and raised, graduated Germantown High School in 2015. So I'm familiar with the area. I'm familiar with various youth organizations, youth sports organizations, coaches in the area, etc. That I will absolutely utilize as partnerships to expand out and provide youth athletes with resources, support, and to give them this holistic development program to improve as athletes, as young, maturing men and women as they grow within this community. I am a certified strength conditioning specialist through the NSCA, National Strength Conditioning Association. I do have my master's degree in kinesiology with an emphasis in exercise science, a business degree for undergrad, bachelor's, and then, like I said, that 5+ years as well. Some specific youth organizations in the area we plan on partnering with would be the Youth Hawks Football Organization, the Germantown Junior Warhawks Fast Pitch Baseball organizations, Adversity Volleyball Club, which is also located on Maple Road, pretty close to where we're proposing this facility to be, SC Wave Soccer Club, and some of those other various youth sports organizations. With that being said, happy to field questions about the proposal, about myself. I'm very confident in my abilities to create this training facility as well as use the training facility to support youth athletes in the greater Germantown area and provide value to them, helping them develop, helping them grow, mature, and not only become better athletes, but become well-rounded individuals as they grow and become empowered community members.
Okay, thank you. Director Lartzoff.
In your application, you talk about the different groups that you're going to try and target. How will the activities be run? Will there be specific sessions for the different age groups and with a limit on how many people are going to be in the building?
Yep, spot on. So it'll be every age group will get blocked into different sessions with a cap on the group size that is welcoming to the community, and that'll be based on capacity limits and things of that nature, as well as coaching staff that's available and things like that. So, but they'll be grouped into different, based on their context and characteristics. So for example, maybe we would have, at noon, we would have a boys middle school session, and then at 1 o'clock, we'd have a girls middle school session, and then we would have maybe a girls basketball team coming in, or, based on the context that they are.
Are there going to be interior improvements that need to be made?
There will be fresh paint added to the walls. There will be flooring installed for turf and rubber, but that will be the extent of it, with equipment brought in as well as you kind of outlined.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, then I will call the public hearing to order. Notice is hereby given. My glasses. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall located at North 112 West 17001 Mequon Road, Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on the following date, Monday, August 14th, 6:30 p.m. or later. The purpose of said hearing will be to hear all parties, any and all parties, their attorneys or agents for or against the following application for conditional use permit for an indoor health and recreation establishment from the property described below pursuant to section 17.33, parent 3, parent H, and section 17.29, parent 1, parent KK of the Village Zoning Code. Applicant is Carter Schmitz, agent for Training Systems LLC and for Ozaki Development Corporation property owner. The property is located at West 188 North 11770 Maple Road, Unit 5. Then it's the property description. So anybody wishing to come forward to comment, discuss, support? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Scott Heffley, W159N10514, Old Farm Road, Germantown. I'm 100% in support of this. I don't know Carter that well, but I know his parents very well. His dad is a very well-known trainer. And Carter was a heck of a football player for any of you that went to his games. My son's very good athletes, and we struggled to find places. I had to send my son down to West Dallas to train, to Milwaukee to train, and to Mequon to train because we didn't have anything like this in the community at the time. So we'd very much like to see something like this where it's focused on activities for specific sports, where I had to drive and spend a lot of time and money outside of Germantown when I'd prefer to spend and inside Germantown.
Thank you. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Director Retzlaff, anything else? Okay, commission members, questions, comments, motions, support, objection.
I support it.
Commissioner Lachesky.
I'll move the motion for the conditional use permit, subject to the 7 conditions as in the revised 814 handout.
I'll second that. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Trustee Baum?
Yes.
The approval is for a conditional use permit for a dog training and education facility. Is that just a typo, or for some reason it's worded that way?
I thought
Yeah,
I was
that's-
crazy.
It's a typo.
If I got this out of order by chance on the paperwork?
No, you're correct. It's a typo.
Okay, all right.
Since you're not here, you weren't, you didn't get a copy of the revised.
See, it didn't, you should have sent that across. We have technology for that, you know.
Okay, so yes, it is not a dog training facility. It is a person training facility. Not to be confused with the place next door. So do not go next door if you're looking for your own training.
Gotcha.
Mr. Lachesky.
The only question I have is on the noise side, is there any loud, low frequency no, music or drums or anything that would aggravate the neighbors?
So
Dropping weights, maybe?
being an athlete performance training facility, there will inherently be some noise involved, just, I mean, moving weights, some music. But we do plan to build great relationship with our neighbors to make sure that we're all on the same page, aware of what's going on, change connection and all that stuff to make sure that we are in full support of each other's businesses and we're not distracting one another. Also would note that our business hours will tend to be different than the general business hours. Working with youth, middle school, high school athletes for eight months of the year, 9 months of the year, our business hours will tend to be more from like 4 p.m., 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., kind of more that evening window. So we won't have too much overlap with general business hours, which should also help to eliminate some of those. And then we also, if it were to ever become an issue, we also could work to install, sound panels, or we could make an effort to try and limit some of that noise that's being tracked outside of the facility. I don't foresee getting to that point, but if needed.
Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Welcome to the village. Okay, that now brings us to item C, which is Craig Kamizek for Bio Research Associates, Inc., agent for Gerald M. Grosnick Trust, property owner of West 157 North 11593 Fond du Lac Avenue. This is a conditional use application to allow circuit board assembly and testing as a component of the proposed business pursuant to section 17.30 parent 3 parent II of the village zoning code. There's a public hearing and action. Director Retzlaff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Greg, and I believe it's Kamishek.
Kamishek.
Agent for Jerry Grosnick Revocable Trust, the property owner, and Bio Research is seeking a conditional use permit for the general office business that has a component that involves circuit board assembly and testing. And that's the reason for the conditional use permit requirement. Couple of graphics showing the site. It's located on Fond du Lac Avenue, just south of Main Street. The lower right graphic shows the building in the foreground and Main Street off to the right. And a more recent photograph in the upper left. BioResearch Associates, Inc. is looking to relocate their business from the Brown Deer area to Germantown to this building. BioResearch is generally in the dental materials industry doing contract research. They design, develop, distribute measurement tools. The 3,625 square foot two-story office building is on just under a half-acre parcel. As explained in the application, approximately 50% of the business operation would include sales, marketing, administrative, promoting products and off-site seminars. 25% of the activity would be involved in on-site and online client training. And then the remaining 25% would involve on-site packaging and assembly and or calibration and testing of pre-printed circuit boards. The hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily, Monday to Friday. A total of 10 employees are identified in the application, 6 of which would be on site, 4 work remotely for the operation. Generally speaking, the B3 district within which this property is located allows unclassified uses with a conditional use permit if the proposed use is similar to a permitted use allowed in the B3 district. Except for the circuit board assembly and calibration testing component, the operation functions like any other general office type use allowed in the B3 district. The staff recommendation is to approve the conditional use permit to allow circuit board assembly and calibration as a component of the BioResearch operation from the facility located on Fond du Lac Avenue, subject to 6 conditions. Is Greg here? Or somebody on behalf of Greg that might want to respond to any questions? No? Okay. So we're ready to go to public hearing.
Okay, call this public hearing to order. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Village Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall located at North 112 West 17001 Mequon Road, Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on Monday, August 14th at 6:30 p.m. or later. The purpose of said hearing will be to hear any and all parties, their attorneys or agents for and against the following application for a conditional use permit to allow circuit board assembly and testing as a component of the proposed business from the property described below pursuant to section 17.30, parent 3, parent II of the Village Zoning Code. The applicant is Greg Kamishek, agent for BioResearch Associates, Inc., and for the Gerald M. Grosnick Trust property owner. Property is located at West 157 North 11593 Fond du Lac Avenue. With that said, is there anybody wishing to come forward for a comment for or against? One more time, anybody wishing to come forward, comment for or against? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing. Commissioners, comments, questions, motions? Mr.
I will
Nellis.
make a motion.
Wait, Mr. Nellis had his hand up.
I beat you to it, Bill. I
Yeah,
will
go
make
ahead.
a motion to approve the conditional use permit to allow a circuit board assembly as noted with the 6 conditions.
Okay,
Motion
and I'll second it then.
and a second. Thank you very much. Discussion. Seeing as he's not here, do you know anything about how broad this wants to get? I don't want another factory on Main Street.
Well, based on the description in the application and some clarifying email communication, it's a minor operation.
Minor operation, not intended to
The,
be
the
a,
circuit boards are small and the calibration, the packaging activity is relatively minor.
okay. All right. Further discussion?
So I take it then that the circuit boards are not made there, they're just assembled there, correct?
I believe the assembly is more the packaging side
Yeah,
of things.
that's what I was kind of thinking, because of soldering the boards, or in fact, making the boards is a chemical process.
Right, they're not actually manufacturing or assembling the boards, it's the packaging materials and the distribution side of assembly or packaging, I guess. And yes, they're all pre-printed and there's no chemical use or activity involved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
And this would be a recommendation to the village board at an upcoming village board meeting.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to item D. Virtus Development LLC, Agent 4, District 1 LLC, and the Robert and Mary Hacker Trust, who are the property owners of West 140 North 10363 Fond du Lac Avenue, and the parcel tax key number for application to one, rezone the parcel from B1 General Business District and parcel 2 from RS6 Single Family Residential Zoning District to the B3 PDD of Coolberg Junction or Coolberg District Planned Development District. And 2, amend the general development plan for Coolberg District PDD Resolution number 16-2018 to include the expansion of business parking and a multifamily development. And 3, site plan review for a 4-unit multifamily townhouse. Action will be taken on this item. Director Etzloff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to rehash what you described, but we do have the 3 basic actions. We're looking to amend the PDD for the Coolberg development area. The current Coolberg PDD boundary is shown on the screen in yellow, and the proposed amendment, the 2 parcels that would be added with the proposal are highlighted in red. Again, the proposal is to amend the PDD, add and rezone the 2 parcels, and take action for site plan proposal for the commercial parking area that would be for purposes or the benefit of the 2 retail establishments, the coffee shop, and ultimately the restaurant, the bar that would be renovated and converted to a restaurant as part of the original proposal. As was mentioned real early on, this is a continuation from the October 10th, 2022 Plan Commission meeting. At that time, the public hearing was open. We took comments. It was closed. And the Plan Commission tabled action giving direction to the developer to address issues such as the density, the number of units, orientation of the building or buildings. It was even, many things were discussed in options, including possibly splitting garages off, detached from the building, and some other things that we had suggested they consider. They have considered those items and have brought back a revised plan that has a 33 stall parking lot and a 4-unit townhouse style residential development. This is the revised PDD plan, the general development plan that would be part of the PDD, showing the retail development on the north and the proposed parking lot and townhouse to the south. Sort of zeroed in on the site plan components really just pertain to the parking lot and the 4-unit townhouse development with the shared stormwater basin in the rear yard. Got a bunch of graphics I'm going to click through. We can discuss them as we go through it, or you want to refer back to them as part of the discussion. This proposed landscape plan, this is something that came in just today. I think in response to some staff comments in the recommendation. The that contains information from the village forester who is looking for a more thorough landscape plan, and this certainly fits that bill. We do have, we'll need the opportunity to review this and provide additional comment. Right now, as included in the staff report, there's a recommendation that the landscape plan be reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission and as well as the village forester. The 4-unit townhouse development, this view from the northeast, view from the northwest, basically from the parking lot you can see in the foreground to the left. And this would be the rear or the west side of the units. This is a view from the southeast, essentially from the driveway intersection on Fond du Lac Avenue, looking toward the building. You can see off to the left of the building, the stormwater basin proposed in the rear of the property. And a view from the southwest, again, of the rear or west side. The white areas are essentially, that's the basement floor, the garage floor. That basement level provides underground parking, 2 stalls, plus additional storage, as we'll discuss shortly. A couple more graphics. The proposed elevation to the east. Each of the units would have be a 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-story with the underground basement garage. The maximum height is bumping up against the 35-foot height limitation for the RM1 zoning district. It doesn't exceed it when you factor in how the height is measured and calculated under the zoning code. Each of the units, 1,120 square feet of living area, as I calculate it, with the exposed basement floor with an additional 680 square feet of the 2-stall parking garage and additional storage, 105 square feet of rear deck, and also a front walk-up stairway entry off of Fond du Lac Avenue. And there's a shared driveway along the south property line. This is the elevation from the west. You can see the garage doors on the lowest level. Above that, the back porch or deck area on the rear of each of the units. This elevation is from the north and from the south. Got the floor plans here if we need to look at those in more detail. And cross sections from a couple of elevations. The staff review comments, the potential parking lot addition was discussed as part of the original PDD approval. We knew that was going to be coming somewhere down the road. The residential component is relatively new. We first discussed it last fall. A CSM will be required to combine the commercial parking lot parcel with the retail buildings to create a unified parcel. Or alternatively, the developer owner could pursue a conditional use permit for an off-site parking lot. We could go that route as well to tie those 2 items together. The proposed rezoning and the PDD amendment to add parcels is consistent with the general land use and density parameters of the 2050 plan for the Victory Center corridor within which this property is located. The 2050 plan does allow multifamily uses with a density up to 10 dwelling units per acre. This proposal, 4 dwelling units on 3/4 of an acre, is approximately 5.4 dwelling units per acre in terms of the density. The maximum density allowed in the RM1 multifamily district, which is the underlying zoning district for this addition to the PDD, is 6 dwelling units per acre. So it's under that maximum density allowance. A couple of graphics. This is a portion of the 2050 neighborhood land use plan. You can see the Victory Center corridor running through from north to south through the middle. I've highlighted the area, which would be the southwest portion of the Donjas Bay at Fond du Lac Avenue intersection, and highlighted the parcels in question with the red solid line. So it's within the Victory Center corridor that does allow for 2 and 4 family dwelling units as an allowable use, as well as commercial retail that had been discussed and approved previously as part of the original Kuberg PDD. Getting into the details, similar to my recommendation back in October, I'm having trouble with the residential component as it's proposed. I appreciate and like the reduction in the number of units. The orientation still, for me, creates it's just too narrow. The parcel's too narrow. And the parcel size is small, particularly when you factor in the shared stormwater basin that takes up more than half of the parcel size. It just provides a little transition to the single family use to the south and little buffer from the commercial parking lot to the north. With that said, as detailed in my staff report, I'm recommending approval if they reconsider and reconfigure the parcels. Because of the CSM requirement, they're going to have to do it anyway. It could be a timely opportunity to shift the common property line between the parking lot and the townhouse, move the common property line further north, possibly remove that lower bank of 7 parking stalls. Yes, we want as much parking as possible for the 2 retail uses, but it's possible that you could move that common property line up 10 to 15 feet, remove those parking stalls, free up a little bit more room for buffering between the parking and the building, and also shift the driveway in the building off of that south property line a little bit more than the 5 feet that's currently proposed, and put in some more space for a landscape buffer that could either be a very dense landscaping feature or could be landscaping and a privacy fence of some sort as well. Public Works Village Engineer has reviewed this project as they review all projects and applications that come before the Plan Commission. There's a July 31st review memo with some comments concerning engineering and utility plan corrections that'll need to be made prior to issuing any building permits. I mentioned the village forester had an issue with the previous landscape plan being incomplete. He's also looking for a tree removal plan and detailed landscape plan for final Plan Commission review and approval. And also the standard inspection services DSPS approved plan requirement and occupancy bond prior to building permit application for the townhouse. With that said, the staff recommendation for the PDD amendment and rezoning is to approve that, to include and rezone the 2 additional parcels, subject to 3 requirements and conditions that are listed in the staff report, and also to approve the site development and building plans for the commercial parking lot and 4-unit multifamily townhouse development, subject to 10 conditions in the staff report. This, again, as I mentioned, this is not subject to a public hearing, but I would ask if Greg Nagel is here. I don't know if Greg is here or somebody on behalf of Vertus to come on forward and share your thoughts on your proposal.
We have a board going around and do you want to say anything about that? Do you want to recognize this?
Display the various color schemes and the types of materials that would be used on the buildings themselves. Wanted to provide, and even the architecture with the high gabled roofs, we wanted to kind of maintain what it's called for within the zoning. So these are just various materials and colors that we wanted to show as options.
Okay.
It's interesting, and Greg's not here, it's his anniversary tonight, so we gave him the night off. The proposed townhomes were not part of the original development, and we saw this as an opportunity with the trust owning that
very narrow piece of property that will more than likely not be developed as a single family home. No one's gonna build, I would think it's $300,000 or $400,000 home in that little rectangular parcel. And I think Brian Depius of the park, he's on the park committee here, testified as such in his experience in development that this kind of misfit piece of triangle or a rectangular property is there. And we thought it would be beneficial for the community and for the village to be able to transition between the business into a residential type product. When we originally came in, obviously we had 6 units and they were turned the other way. There was discussion about parking, not enough parking. Again, given the limited size of the site, we reconvened and repositioned the buildings and added more parking and garbage area as well. And I know there was some discussion about why it's taking so long. I don't know if everyone remembers, we kind of just came out of COVID and that was not really the opportune time to open up a restaurant. Although Greg did with the coffee shop, he did plow forward with that, but obviously it wasn't prudent to continue and move forward quickly with the restaurant. But now, again, the whole idea was to create this nice buffer between kind of the retail areas or the commercial areas with this housing. And we had that with Jeff, and I thought that we kind of were under the impression that this 4-unit off the road setback further was going to be something that would be acceptable. So I'm a little surprised. I thought that we had discussed that and we would not have come in with these plans if they were not seen as going to be acceptable. So we invested more time, more effort to redo these plans. We're certainly open to further discussion. It would, I think, be a shame if we're not able to do something with that rectangular piece of property because it will more than likely remain open if something is not done. I don't know, Michelle, if there's anything you wanted to add.
No, I did want to add is that we did take into consideration public comments from the last meeting as a concern with the density of the proposed townhouses at that time being 6 units. And so we reduced them in that regard as a result and as we took seriously the concerns of the neighbors. So in order, if we're going to have to consider expanding that again, I don't think that meets the needs of the community. We've been hearing all along that they want something more modest, something that fits in with the residents around them. And so we took that to heart. We're very sensitive to having this be a modest, 4-family unit that's going to be not only a buffer from the commercial development to the north. It's going to block noise, light, but also serve as that transition into the residential area. So we wanted to keep that a modest build. We feel like everything that we've proposed definitely meets the criteria of what was asked.
And I would say it's also, I think, a nice housing option for families to be able to come into Germantown and be able to transition this type of a product into a home to become permanent residents. And that's kind of the function of it.
Okay. Thank you.
In consideration to give value back for asking for the PDD to be part of this, this restaurant is going to be, it's already been, we have a lot of development, a lot of plans for that. And the parking, all the parking is going to be needed to serve the restaurant and to serve the community with the wonderful, benefit we want to bring with that.
Do you have a time frame on that? I've been asked.
To make these builds concurrent with each other.
Exactly.
We've been soliciting bids.
Spring is when we'll be shooting for,
Yes.
for breaking ground.
For the restaurant component, so.
Because of the proximity. It just makes sense to continue that development all at the same time.
So everything would become harmoniously pulled together so it doesn't look like shambles.
Correct.
Okay,
That
so,
housing, that house that houses the bar definitely.
right. Okay, commissioners, Mr. Nellis.
Couple questions. These are rental units, the townhomes?
We haven't quite decided whether to do rental or sale. It's gonna depend on the market and rates and sort of, we can't make a determination as of yet.
Okay. And second question, and maybe this is for Director Retzloff. Can we get some sort of a graphic showing the existing houses and how they relate to the townhomes? Like overlay on a aerial photo or something like that? Do we have something like that?
In elevation or in plan view?
Plan view.
Plan view.
This is all I've got.
Okay, that doesn't show where the townhomes are gonna be.
Townhomes are going to be at the same, you see that, the house on the north side there? On
Yeah.
the top of the L?
Right.
They will be as far back as that house is. So they'll probably be in line with that house. That's the 30-foot setback.
But there's a parking lot in oh, no, that's where the parking lot is going to be.
The house goes away and the parking lot goes there.
The townhouse will be closer to Fond du Lac Avenue than the two existing homes on either side of the vacant lot.
Mhm. Okay. So then the detention basin is going to be just back, okay. So it's going to be behind basically that other home that's on Dodges Bay. Okay. That's it for now.
Anything else from the commissioners? Okay, I'll take a crack at it. Director Retzloff, you had propositions of moving property lines. Were you talking about moving the property line on the north side of the new townhouses, moving that farther north?
Yes.
How far were you anticipating moving it?
I took a stab at like 10 to 15 feet. Again, that assumes that you eliminate that lowest southernmost block of 7 parking stalls.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is there going to be enough parking if we remove 7 stalls?
I'm concerned about that. We're proposing to have a lot of business at the restaurant. That's costly parking.
Okay, so that's an issue. My concern that I've heard from the residents is the 3-story nature of the building. Can we raise the grades up around the front and south side of the building so it's a 2-story building? If you were to slope the whole front yard instead of a flat with a staircase up to it.
Kind of berm it up on the top and
Yeah,
we can look at that and see.
okay.
What to do.
That would go a long way to appeasing the residents because it's no longer a 3-story building in the front, it appears. And on this side, on the north side, it's really a 2.5-story.
Or we can go deep.
That would be good too. Options for it. Can you pull up the new landscaping plan? I'd rather talk about something that's new instead of what's old, because I didn't get to see this one. And what we're concerned about is, I know on the old plan, there is a hedgerow along the south, your south property line, but I don't know what those bushes are. See, it used to be a very dense hedgerow. Now it's just 3 trees
So on the south of the driveway.
south of the driveway.
Landscape, or need to go back and make a few changes. Right now, there's our daylilies, it says there, but we want to have a natural privacy barrier. We hope to get some arborvitaes.
And that's what I thought was in this proposal. I saw something different there. So we need to get that corrected. Yes.
It looks like they're actually lindens, the 3 linden trees.
That is, but the plan I just saw this today. This is the first time I'm seeing it here at this meeting.
Yeah, it was just submitted late this afternoon.
And those linden trees don't get a full barrier between the people to the south and this, where arborvitae's, tall and dense, would give them the screen that they're looking for. Architecturally, can you pull up the perspective views? What is this little beak thing that's above your living room windows? It's this tiny little, between the entry door canopies, there's a little thing. What is that? What is it for?
The white thing?
The white thing.
The horizontal white thing above the window?
Yeah, above the window, above the first floor window. That bank of 3 windows, it's a little eyebrow, and I don't know what it's, it doesn't do anything architecturally for me. I don't.
Well, I think it's gonna be a color separation with that band versus it all being one color throughout.
Well, I agree. You need something to break up the massing of it, but I'm not sure that that little beak is, if you go to the, front view, from the other side there, you see it better on that end. It's just little, and it's on the back of the building too. I don't know what that is. And then which color scheme are we really looking for? This pumpkin one.
It's actually, so if you wanted to provide, see some sage color. Choice.
Okay. All right. So, so that if we go forward with this, those are some tweaks that I think need to be made, because I do recognize all the residents I've heard from are opposed to the 3-story nature of the building. 2-story would be fine if we can address the grading and solve that problem. Maybe that's an option. As far as residential versus commercial, that you made some comments about that. Whether residential is right to go here.
No, I think residential is a suitable use.
Just,
I agree with it. I think it's just still too close to the south property line. I mean, this graphic doesn't realistically portray the fact that the property line is 5 feet off the edge of the asphalt.
Right.
And if we're going to try and put in some sort of buffer screening, you're not going to fit much in a 5-foot wide strip.
No, it's going to either grow over the driveway or grow over on their property.
You know, and this graphic shows it too. I mean, picture the garbage truck that comes in to empty the dumpster. It's pulling in, and then it has to back out onto Fond du Lac Avenue. And it's right up against the property line.
The question is, do we sure whether or not separate canisters that would come out? So.
Well, that would be a new feature or a variance, if you will, to the process. Any multifamily 3-unit or more building in the village is responsible for contracting their own. So you'd have to make sure that were the case.
Yep.
And the other concern I have is this really should be a right in, right out driveway, because where the driveway is located is where the curb is for the roundabout. That pink spot is curb, and that curb extends all the way to the south property line. Because I remember when that went in, we had to make sure the Schultes could get in and out of their driveway, because they were the ones that came forward to bring it to our attention. So is that going to be problematic? For me, it is a problem. But, so, yes, I agree with you, Director Retzloff, that if we can move everything farther north, that would be great. I'm concerned about if we do move it north and take out 7 parking stalls, now I've lost 7 parking stalls for a restaurant that needs parking. Is there a reconfiguration of that parking lot that can be done?
Well, I think they've done a really good job configuring it the way they have, with the one-way flow of traffic and the angled stalls. I mean, it saves space. The aisle width doesn't have to be as deep.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm concerned with that too. But again, you've got 5 feet between the edge of the building and the property line on the north, and then 7 feet to the edge of the curb. So it's 12 feet between the building and the edge of the parking lot, with parking stalls that are aimed at the building, that are serving a restaurant that'll be open into the evening.
Right.
So-
Headlights in the bedroom windows.
Well, second floor, and when you look at the graphic, I can pull that up and I'll go through that too. There you're looking at the parking stalls, according to the grading plan and as depicted in this image, sit up a little bit higher than the building. So they're effectively at the second floor elevation. So again, I'm just trying to come up with a solution that would enable the 4-unit townhouse to develop while providing some additional buffering for the single-family residents to the south. And also for the future residents between the commercial parking and the building, if it's possible. I mean, the Plan Commission may think this is just fine.
Okay. Commission members.
Can I offer a quick comment?
Sure. Yes.
It really is no different than what exists at the coffee shop on the side. Is that you have to go right into the coffee shop and you can only take a right out and go out to go left on. I think that makes traffic very well flowing. I'm not sure that the proximity of the proposed townhouse to that roundabout lends itself to a left-hand turn. Maybe the just, right in, right out is the best solution for that, especially if we are looking at extending townhouses.
Excuse me.
Sir.
So I agree with Mr. Baum. That is a problem because you don't have a roundabout to take advantage of as you go to the south. Where are you going to make that U-turn? How are you going to make the U-turn? I think that is an issue.
That's my concern is
Right.
I'm going to flip a UE.
Right.
Right there, and I'm going to be blocking traffic.
Right, yeah.
So.
I do the same thing. When I leave the coffee shop, I go there frequently. And I head south and make a U-turn on 145. It's really inconvenient. Right in the middle of the road.
So you do that. You make a U-turn, an illegal U-turn.
Exactly. I turn right there to get away from the curb and then make a U-turn right there.
The people on Judge Judy were brought to jail for their comments. So just watch what you say, Commissioner.
Okay.
Police may be after you.
But it is a problem.
Yes, yes.
But it's not illegal.
I do not know.
I'm not sure what's legal because it isn't an intersection. It's not really intended for that. And it's difficult if you have too big of a car.
Yeah. Yeah. So I see that as a problem waiting to happen.
Yeah,
but I would agree.
So it's four townhouses worth of traffic.
Yes.
Not the parking. The parking lot has access to both Donjas Bay and Fond du Lac Avenue.
Correct. Yes. Yes. I was thinking you could connect the parking lot to the back parking lot and then you could get out to the north, but that's a problem too. Because the grade changes.
Yeah, the grade changes.
Yeah.
Just one of the problems.
So it's a challenging site. We all agree with that. It's difficult to squeeze anything into here. And
Can I ask you a question?
sure.
Your suggestion about reducing the height of the building, how realistic is that and how much height can you reduce it?
Well, I can take the whole first floor out if I slope up the front yard.
So you're basically piling up dirt around this graphic, around the basement.
Yes. Much
So-
like they did on the north side. They've taken half of it out on the north side. And if you go up a little bit more, then you have an east side house where you've got the basement windows showing that gets you light into the basement and you only have 2 stories above grade. And then you have the little steps up.
Yeah, but when you look at this graphic, you're suggesting that those bushes on the south side of the building essentially be a berm.
That's what I kind of thought I was reading in the civil drawings anyway.
Well, I guess I would question the interpretation of the commentary about the building being too tall versus being 3 stories. I mean, yes, it sounds like you can make it look like it's just 2 stories in its appearance, but the building's still going to be the same height.
Above,
Isn't that the concern?
above the street.
You didn't hear it that way?
No, I didn't hear it that way.
So is the building going to be Is the what about, maybe I'm misunderstanding here. Would the garages be lower then? Or are you building up the ground?
The discussion is, can you build up the ground so that the building appears to be 2 stories in the front and on the sides?
But in reality, that doesn't answer the concern, does it?
It's a 2-story building. It doesn't look like it's 30 feet tall. It looks like it's 20 feet tall, whatever the dimension is.
Whether it's valid or not, I think the complaint from the neighbors is the height of the building over their terrain, which wouldn't change with your idea, would it?
The height's not going to change, no, but the
Right.
appearance will change.
I agree. Okay, I do agree with that, but the only way to answer the request from the neighbors, if it's a valid one, is to eliminate the garage and put it elsewhere, which I don't know where that would be.
Yeah, and then it's a less desirable configuration because it's more valuable to walk from your garage directly into your unit as opposed to walking
Absolutely, I
across
do
the
agree
parking
with
lot.
that, yeah.
Yeah. So it's all the pros and cons. So do we have a motion? We have a motion? We have no motion yet.
No.
A lot of discussion, but no motion.
Well, I guess I could make a motion to get it into discussion. I'll move that we approve and amending and expanding the Coburg product development as per the paragraph there, Lori, with the conditions specified by the planning staff.
So we have a motion to approve the rezoning. You want to do all these at once or take them separate? Approve the rezoning, approve the general development plan, and approve the site plan as presented,
Yes,
all in one.
I actually think that's the way it's worded, isn't it?
No, it's worded to break apart the PDD from the site plan.
Oh, I didn't see it. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. It didn't go down far enough. Okay, I'll do the first one only.
Okay,
The amending and expanding the Coburg Project Development District.
okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the expansion of the Coburg Planning Development District, including 2 additional parcels with 1 condition. Any discussion on that?
Can I
Mr.
actually ask
Webb.
a question? So it keeps being brought up that it's a 3-story complex, but our code says it can only be 2.5 stories. So are we just saying it's 3 stories, but because of the way it's created, it's not considered more than 2.5?
Yes, the
Okay.
maximum height is not being exceeded of 35 feet.
Okay. And one other question, when I didn't go back and look at the setback from the side yard to the residential on the south when this was a 6-unit proposal, what did we gain from a setback from taking it down from 6 units to 4 units if we're still 5 feet off of the south yard, the south
Yeah,
neighbor?
I believe we gained 7 feet from 17 to 24 foot on the
Okay.
setback.
Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Nilles.
I guess a question for Director Etzloff. Earlier discussion on PDDs, there was some talk about how it's a give and take and how the village can, negotiate certain things and let the developer negotiate other things. What exactly are we gaining in this PDD? What does the village get out of this PDD, and how would this amending and expanding, does that provide for any additional benefit to the village?
Well, I think the original PDD, the thought was similar to what we just discussed, that we were getting redevelopment of an eyesore in the village and restoration of a quote unquote historic structure, the old schoolhouse at the corner, along with additional landscaping that was ultimately approved outside in the road right away for the state. And so we're all looking forward to the final plan being completed on the retail side of things. But with regard to the amendment, the parking, I guess the argument was that it's a continuation with regard to providing the parking needed for the retail component. I guess I'd ask that of the developer. What public benefit, if any, do you foresee or envision this type of development providing?
Certainly on the retail side, you're going to have another restaurant that is going to be locally owned and local ingredients, farm to table, more or less is the plan. So you're going to provide a family restaurant that has a connection to the cafe house that's currently there with a portico that will be shared. That'll be a great place for residents to hang out in the summer and in the fall. And then again, with our thought of adding these townhomes is to create that buffer between the residential transition from the coffee house, the restaurant, to a smaller 4-unit townhome to the rest of the residential.
And we know there's a lack of available housing, especially for young professionals in the village of Germantown. We just wanted to address that with the townhouse.
So the restaurant was part of the PDD originally, correct?
Yes.
So I guess I'm not seeing how expanding this, I mean, maybe other than additional parking.
Parking is
Okay.
necessary.
All right.
So is there a thought that this might qualify for the Washington County Next Generation Housing Program? Okay.
You have to understand what that is for me. I'm sure income level. It's market rate.
Well, their angle is to provide for sale housing for young professionals that's affordable. You know, in the $325,000 to $425,000 range.
Something we would definitely consider giving market conditions.
Okay. Further discussion? Mr. Nilles, you still have the floor.
Thank you. So there are some items in this expanding or recommendation here, items that are highlighted. Are those changes from the original PDD?
Those are changes to the language in the original PDD. Some of the sections, only those sections that the developer is proposing to make changes to. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, and Section 7 from the original PDD.
Okay. I think my questions are answered.
Mr. Williams?
So my question at this point is, you guys have mentioned you're trying to combine the redevelopment of the restaurant along with the townhomes. If the townhouses don't get approved, what does that do to the?
We'll have to reconvene and look at what our options are.
Okay, so at this point, the restaurant doesn't get redone unless you get the townhouses
I
approved?
can't speak for Greg at this point, so I'd have to say we'd have
Okay.
to have that discussion.
So have you guys already acquired the property that you're looking to put the parking and the townhomes on, or is that a proposal if it gets?
The parking is already owned. We have a purchase. Well, yeah, we've got an accepted offer on the property that the trust currently owns.
Okay, but the residential, I mean, the two retail building renovations, the original PDD to renovate the coffee house, now the coffee house, and the tavern into a restaurant. At that time, the townhome development was not part
Correct.
of the thought process, at least that you presented to us.
Well, we do have to look at what stormwater management means with the parking lot, where that water can go if it's not gonna go on the property that's next door to it.
Right, or make a smaller parking lot so you can finish the second restaurant like you proposed to do.
some re-engineering again, if we're only able to go to the restaurant and not the townhouses, we don't purchase that lot, we'll have to re-engineer the whole water runoff situation with the parking. So we answer.
Right, I mean, the original plan, if I recall correctly, even in the PDD, it referred to a couple of alternatives for the expanded parking lot that you were thinking at the time that didn't include the townhouse property, but it was a parking lot that had stormwater management and parking stalls in the same piece.
Underground?
No, it was,
No, just a pond?
I wasn't part of the company
Okay.
at that point, so I don't recall what was.
okay.
Well, you should have been. It was a great time. Anything else?
No, I guess I heard something that I'm concerned with, that the second restaurant might not be completed if the townhome.
I can't speak to that. That would be Greg's decision.
Yes, that is troubling.
That's what I heard.
That is troubling. Okay. Further discussion. Point of order for me. Am I allowed to vote on this?
Why wouldn't you?
I've had issues with this company before. I haven't voted on any of their stuff.
That's your call.
I'll be abstaining again. Okay, so, commissioners, any further questions? Okay, you understand what the motion is? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed, raise your hands. Mr. Shadid? Did we lose him?
Bill, are you there?
Sorry, my fault. I was muted. I vote in favor. Did you get that okay?
Yes, we got that. We're clarifying what our vote is on. The vote is on amending to expand the Kuberg Plan Development District to include the additional 2 parcels.
Right, but I should point out that the staff recommendation to approve amending and expanding the Kuber Plan Development District includes the general development plan that is proposed by the developer. The staff recommendation is on the site plan side to slightly move that building to the north and relocate the property line, just so you understand.
So do you want to take number 2 first, part 2 first?
Arguably, that would make more sense.
Okay, then we will,
Need to vote.
I guess it doesn't matter. If you approve the expansion of the PDD and you're concerned about the location of the townhouse like I am, then we would modify that section 2 in some fashion. But if you're okay with it, which it sounds like most of you are, then you can just go ahead and approve it.
I'm okay with it.
okay, so right now I've got 4 in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstained. Okay,
And we're gonna eliminate those 7 parking stalls and we're gonna
No.
move the building north, or we're
No.
approving it that it's as presented.
as is.
As is, that I'm gonna
No,
continue.
Yeah, it's just the,
We have talked about, eliminating 7 stalls, but we have not gone down that road.
up a little bit more.
Want to make sure we're all clear on what we're approving or not approving.
Up here, it's got right here. Just adding.
Okay, so under this, we're not approving for family or.
No, you're just expanding the PDD to the 2 properties.
Two properties.
Okay, so it is 5 in favor, 1 abstained. Okay, now, the second part, site development and building plans. We have a motion on that. Seeing no motion. Mr.
Move
Lashewski,
that we approve the site development and building plans for the commercial parking lot and 4-unit multifamily townhouse development, subject to the 10 additions.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Does everybody understand the motion? Okay. Any discussion on that motion? This is approving the plan as presented, no changes, no nothing
Well, no.
Great.
with the,
If that's what you want to do, then you need to eliminate condition number 3.
okay, so condition number 3, the developer shall reduce the size of the commercial parking lot by eliminating or reconfiguring stalls along the south side in order to reconfigure the size of the 2 parcels to allow the townhouse building to be shifted 15 feet to the north.
Up to 15.
Up to 15 feet. Up to, yes.
I will make a motion that we modify by eliminating item 3, condition 3. I won't word it out, but you have it there, Lori.
That is your amendment, a motion to make an amendment.
That's correct to the motion.
Okay, does everybody understand that amendment? Anybody want to second that amendment? Everybody's shaking their head no, so that amendment fails for lack of a second. So that item is still in there. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
That's all opposed? Okay, everybody's in favor. That's 5-4, 1 abstention again. And that's it. So 2 parts of this, right?
Yes.
Okay. There you have our directions. Okay, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the Dickman Company, agent for R.A. Steinman Legacy LLC and Holy Hill Self-Storage LLC, property owner, and Truck Country. Property is at North 128 West 21795 Holy Hill Road. Site plan review and consultation. This is a consultation only, no action will be taken. Director Etzloff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Dickman Company, agent for the property owners, and Truck Country are seeking feedback on a potential 15.7 acre, 30,000 square foot truck and semi-trailer sales service facility located in the southeast corner of the Holy Hill Road at I-41 interchange in the Holy Hill Gateway District. As shown on the screen, the parcel is highlighted in red. I think all of us are familiar with the site. There's a series of buildings that are used for a variety of storage. The property over the years has been leased out to a variety of small businesses, utility companies for storage of equipment temporarily, and so on. This proposal would result in redevelopment of the site and ideally result in a building that would look somewhat similar, if not identical, to the one shown on the screen, approximately 30,000 square feet in size. As you can see on the site plan here, the building shown in yellow would be near the south central portion of the property. The largest portion of the property would be used for parking of truck tractors, truck trailers, both new, used, and those awaiting or done with servicing from the facility. There is a stormwater basin also shown on the property to handle runoff from development of the site. A Truck Country operates, I had a nice note here. This operation will be a full truck sales and service and parts operation. Freightliner is one of the brands that their dealership for. Operations would be Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Saturday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., closed on Sundays. 45 total employees expected to operate from the facility. 20 new trucks, truck tractors, and 20 used truck tractors on display for sale. Customer trucks would be parked both before and after service work, and the number would vary, but as you can see, there's quite a number of parking stalls on the site that are shown. Dealership vehicles would also be parked on the lot for parts and service for their use, employee use. The reason we're here this evening has the same reason we discussed the Great Lakes packaging proposal a couple of months back. The 2050 plan, and more specifically, the Holy Hill Gateway District within which this property is located, has a slightly different vision. The vision under the 2050 plan for the property is mixed use neighborhood commercial and possibly higher density residential, and is not intended to be an industrial park or an extension of the existing light industrial uses further to the east, the Capstone 41 or the Gateway Corporate Park development to the northeast. Again, when you look at the Holy Hill Gateway District map, portions of which are shown on the screen, you remember the little red C in the circle, the commercial activity center designation that we placed on a few spots throughout the village. Originally, that commercial activity node was shown at the Goldendale at Holy Hill intersection, and after discussion was ultimately moved to this location, the what would effectively be the Holy Hill at the future frontage road intersection, that currently is now the private driveway that serves the Holy Hill storage and this property. Again, the intention is for neighborhood type commercial, although arguably the area could also serve a highway oriented type commercial, motel, hotel, convenience, gasoline, C-store, or in this case, a truck sales and service operation that certainly is highway oriented business, given its nature, as I briefly described. The 2050 plan, the vision plan and the 2050 plan shows that area as red, mixed use commercial, high density residential. And as we discussed for the last few months, we're in the process now of discussing proposals for the master plan for the Holy Hill Gateway District that is intended to further refine the types of uses that we would like to see occur in the Holy Hill Gateway District, as well as the Freistadt District to the south. That item is on our discussion for later this evening to review the proposals that we received for that master planning activity that is intended to be a 9-month process. And, at hand, the questions are, is this the type, the truck country? Is this the type of neighborhood commercial retail use that we envision for this part of the interchange and in the Holy Hill Gateway District? Whether it is or it isn't, do we wait for the master plan to be completed to determine the most suitable land uses and other items that might come out of that plan in terms of access and other types of land uses? Other issues that are coming to play, the frontage road construction, as I mentioned, right now it's a private gravel driveway for the most part south of the storage units. I don't know how many of the Plan Commission members have been down that road. It's probably worth taking a look at if you haven't. That intersection has been designed. Half of it has been constructed as part of the Holy Hill redevelopment project. The other half would be constructed, and ultimately that gravel driveway would be converted to a public street for future access to not only this property, but properties to the south, on the south of the railroad, assuming the railroad crossing is also approved by the DOT and the Wisconsin and Southern Railroad. When you look at this graphic, clearly the primary axis is intended to be along the south, essentially along the railroad. So that driveway would have to be at a minimum reconstructed either in the interim or ultimately as a private driveway that can handle truck traffic. The existing access point that's way on the far north side of the property, basically right at the intersection. Clearly, that could not be used for primary access purposes to a development of this type. The turning radius involved would not be conducive for truck traffic. And so if that access were retained in some way for development of this site for truck country, at best, a emergency access in some way with some sort of frangible barrier or something that the fire department can get through if necessary. But that would necessitate that driveway be reconstructed. And I believe that is part of the conversation that we've had with, that we need to have with Dickman Development as well as the property owners. So with that said, I'll just open it up for conversation. I would point out Sam and representatives from Truck Country are here this evening. Maybe we will have you guys come up and explain us what your proposal is at this point.
Appreciate you having us here tonight. Really, my name's Dan Armstrong. I don't live in the area directly, but ultimately I run the dealership operations for our Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois stores. And what we're looking to do is we're a third generation family owned business looking to really move our footprint. Right now we have a very successful store that we've outgrown in the city of Milwaukee on 107th in Brown Deer Road. We're looking out at this area as an opportunity not only to grow in our footprint, in our size, and grow our employees and sales base, but really, support and service not only on highway customers, but I would tell you as much as that local customers that are your day cabs, dump trucks, school buses, et cetera. In fact, the village does purchase some of our Western Star products right now that we support through that store in Milwaukee. So there's some opportunity, I think, for us to be part of certainly, the village and what you guys are doing. Obviously, it's a chance for us to grow, our business, our revenue, and our footprint in this market area. And quite frankly, it's a good thing for us to do that, not only as a business, but as a partner in the community. So thanks for having us.
I have a question. What component of your operation would be the sales component of truck, tractors, trailers, what have you?
Primarily new and used trucks would probably be in the, I'd say, $25 to $35 million range starting off, and our parts and service business is probably $6.5 to $7 million. So obviously the sticker on a truck, a lot of sales, but certainly the component that we work with also is the support part of it between service and part sales for our customers.
And the service component, you mentioned you'd serve, sounds like just about anybody who has a large vehicle that would utilize or need your type of equipment to service. School buses and the like, dump trucks. So when your business is flourishing on this site, what is the parking lot filled with? Is it mostly vehicles that are waiting for or done with service, or are they vehicles that are for sale?
Typically, it's going to be some of the vehicles that we have for sale because the customers are going to want to have their vehicles serviced and turned around very quickly because a lot of our equipment, you can't rent, you can't own or rent a vacuum truck out. So if that vacuum truck is sitting in our lot, they want that truck back. So typically we're turning those trucks very, very quickly. In fact, 70% of our trucks turn within 24 hours. So it's a large turnover of customer service work that we do, and we support, obviously, that type of business.
So most of the employees that are on the site on a given day, they're working or related to the service side of things.
Correct. Those 45, employees would be working. I'd say 35 of those would be really our parts and service employees, and then the other 10 would be administrative and sales and managers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments, thoughts?
I just had one comment or question.
Yes, sir.
In an operation like this, how many, it's mostly tractors, road tractors, is it not? There wouldn't be a lot of trailers or vans?
Typically, we're gonna get some work that's gonna come in with trailers, but that's not the mainstay of our business. We don't typically do trailer work, quite frankly, because it takes up a lot of base space for us and we can't turn trucks fast enough. So we typically, we don't handle trailer work, typically unless it's an emergency quick fix item that's pulling outside of our shop. We don't.
You're right. In that case, the trailer would still be attached to the tractor you're gonna work on.
In some
Okay,
cases.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In some cases it would.
Right. Thank you.
Director Retzlaff.
Yeah, I thought of another question. I went on your website and I was looking at all your other facilities in different states. And your site is set up really nice, so it lists all the services and things you provide from location to location, so you can sort of compare. And a couple of them, and I didn't see any that were close by, but there were some in the description, it talked about having showers and like a lounge. And it started to sound more like a place where people are maybe they're parked in your parking lot, they're staying there overnight, and they're walking in, they take a shower in the morning, sort of like what happens up the street at 41 and Pioneer Road, the Pioneer Plaza, or even across the street at the Quick Trip and Holy Hill.
What'll happen typically is a customer would come to us maybe with an unknown issue. They get there and they'd have to wait for their truck to get done. If it gets to the point of the end of business hours or after, we close everything on that facility, including our employees, is really out of there. The customers are typically taken to a local motel or other business if necessary.
Okay.
And we don't have them in their trucks on premise sleeping in our facility. It's just because there's a security liability issue that we really don't want to have there. So you'll see in a lot of our, commitment to our customer, we provide free shuttles, things to the closest, place they want to go. But a lot of times the customers want their trucks moving very quickly as well. They're gonna say, leave it there, get another loaner truck and get out of here if they gotta go today.
So it'd be nice to have
So
a
it's not-
hotel
it's not a
nearby.
hotel, and then the showers are more or less a convenience that maybe someone would use. And some of them do have like a laundry facility while they're waiting, but it's not for a long use overnight.
Okay, so it's not intended to be like your
No.
typical truck plaza, truck
It is-
stop
it is
sort of
not.
thing.
It is not, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioners, what do you want to see in this area of the village? That's
What does
really,
the water line look like where it runs through? I know we had a couple different versions of that, but what is the intention with that? Is that supposed to be a bike walking path or
do you have
eventually
the
where it goes
route
through like
of the
the
water line?
You mean
Stout Farm?
the Germantown to Richfield utility extension?
Yeah.
That, the sewer is intended to run along the railroad at this point on the south side of the railroad across the bottom of this property. So it wouldn't come into play.
So if this went there, it wouldn't affect any of that or the future plan of what that was going to possibly create?
No, I don't believe so, not at all.
Like south of that's the railroad tracks, so that's fine. South of that's David J. Frank, they're not going anywhere. So it's not really blocking continuity to anything is what I'm getting at.
No,
The intended route currently is down this gravel driveway, across the railroad track, and then we're coming eastbound midway through that parcel of land between the railroad track and David J. Frank's.
Yeah.
Going over a couple of parcels and then south again to Freistadt.
So it's not like the other side where there's continuity all the way through to the next off ramp that this would be blocking it. That's all I'm getting at.
no, no.
That is the question that is being asked. What do you want continuity through this whole development from Holy Hill Road south to Freistadt? What do you want to see there?
I don't think you'll get it anyway.
Why not?
Well, because like Frank's not gonna go anywhere.
David J. Frank's not, but we're gonna come down, come around and surround him. Leave him where he's at.
Yeah, I mean, we're thinking long term here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
Is this Is truck country the type of business that we want in this section? We had, who came forward north of
Green Bay Packaging
packaging?
with an industrial building.
We had a vision up there of different uses. What is the use that we have for this section? That's the ultimate question for these guys tonight. Is this a business that we want in this location? Is this location, is there a reason why you want this location as opposed to a little down, a little over on that map behind you?
I mean, number one, the property size fits exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah.
The exit and ease to get to our facility, not only from local traffic to on-highway traffic is more than what we'd want. Because our current facility is probably, let's just say 5 minutes, 5 miles off of 41. We do very well there. Obviously, the closer we get to more people, more opportunities and size, it becomes better for us as well.
Okay. Mr. Leszewski.
I guess when you look at that, the existing site, it's probably been arguably underutilized for years. I mean, there's value, as they just noted, in the access, the visibility of that site, the size, but I guess I still want to go through this planning process to see what else surfaces to maintain that continuity. Because what I look at this use for what we envision there isn't kind of what I had in mind. I don't know if it could be apartments, some level of I don't know, whatever passes for retail these days or service. But again, given the attributes of that specific site, I think it would be attractive to a lot of different users, and we haven't fully explored what that may be.
I mean, it's possible that the mini storage could ultimately be redeveloped, and the site could have a hotel and or a small restaurant or something that all of a sudden all three of these uses are, sort of the symbiotic relationship between the truck country, the motel, and the restaurant kind of a thing. So for me, I'm not necessarily ruling it out, because it certainly is a highway-oriented use that would stand to benefit from this particular location. But I think we need to play out the master plan process. That's my thought process.
What's your time frame? I want to be building this next month.
We'd like to, yeah, but that's just.
We pulled strings before.
And ultimately, we'd like to, be in the property end of next year if that's at all possible. Obviously, there's got to be some consideration and thought put into it from the group here. And we appreciate that. And
Can I ask a question? And maybe this is more appropriate for Sam Dickman. We talked about the access issue and realistically the need to reconstruct that driveway, either as a private driveway or a future frontage road, public street. Knowing how government moves pretty slow, and given your time frame, what's your thought at this point for how and who would improve that driveway, that roadway to give you access?
I'd be honest with you, telling you that, the concern we had earlier with the current driveway that is in place for the current business would not fit some of our traffic. I think I would disagree with that. But we hadn't thought long enough to say how that road would be developed or who's going to do it.
Okay.
I mean, we haven't gotten to that point yet. Just being frank with them, saying,
I think there's some flexibility to look at that. I know that it can extend it down, and we haven't done all the traffic patterns. I think see if it's use fit before we started.
Sure. Right. That makes sense.
Because what you said makes sense, to have that distance to take this turn in that bottom right.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably more distance than you'd need, but it's really the only other alternative other than maybe north of that stormwater pond in some way.
I think for any business, I think it just helps too to have a couple different exits to just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this, as things proceed, we're definitely going to need to see some sort of truck turning movements on that north side, because frankly, it's very tough. I can't imagine trying to turn left out of that site into the intersection. Particularly knowing that somewhere down the road, it's going to be a 2-lane divided or even maybe more frontage road serving a lot of traffic industrial wise up and down, so.
Further questions? Commissioners? What direction can you give these guys? I like it, but I'm not ready to go yet. What do we? Mr. Nellis?
I guess I'm kind of feeling the same way, and I believe that's the way Director Etzloff wrote his report. But I guess my biggest question is that the land uses that we had identified for the 2050 plan, there really is no I just don't know where the residential is going to go, if we are truly going to have residential. And I guess I want to try to see where we might be able to try to fit that in. It makes sense to put this type of a use right at the interchange. I agree with that, but I just want to know where we're going to be putting residential.
If we're going to be putting, is
And-
residential a right use for this area?
Right.
So.
Right. Well, it's currently, I mean,
Proposed.
Right.
Yeah, that's what's in our.
So that's my biggest question right now.
Okay.
I guess it could fit there, but I would see residential personally a little bit further south and a little bit further toward the east from there. But I don't have that map up in front of me, so. But right there by the interchange, this seems like a good application.
Yes, I would agree with that. It does seem to be a kind of a perfect fit for what they want, what they need. But
Right.
is it right for what we want and what we need? That's the question.
Yeah, there's the map there. I was looking, you see where the parcel is we're talking about outlined in black there.
Yep.
There's the railroad tracks. My thought would have been that housing, if it was going to go in there, would be the other side of the tracks and more toward the east.
And what is the light pink is called out as the business park. And then there's the different shade of pink, which is the light industrial, which is above kind of sandwiching Holy Hill Road.
Right.
Yes, okay, I agree.
Yeah, so it's called out as business park. And that's why I was questioning how important is this location to you. If you were to come south of the railroad track and just into that pink area, would that work for you as well if we were to come to conclusions?
Well, I was looking also at your sites on, I went to your website, found your addresses there, and there's the one off 107th here in town. And I think the one I looked at was in Iowa. They aren't necessarily right by the highway. So is that important to you?
It is. It's something that you can get by with, but the further you get off, you lose some of the visibility, you lose some of that the unknown advertising that you get from just being, ubiquitous from that side.
Yep.
Yeah, just being there. Yep. I understand. I
Um,
mean, a car dealer would feel the same way.
Correct.
That my other sites are available for sale.
Right, but we're preparing plans for a long time down the road too, and not just the immediate demand or need. One of the things we have discovered in conversations with the railroad and the DOT folks is that the railroad crossing, it's not a slam dunk, frankly. And there's a process that we need to go through, and we're beginning to do that. And we'll talk a little bit more at our next agenda item about some of the things that have happened since we met last. But, you know, if we assume that the railroad crossing is not approved, then it really changes the dynamics of the land use, certainly south of the railroad. And the whole idea of it being a business park or even high-density residential of any sort starts to get called into question. So it's important that for the Freistadt district, you know, we go forward with that master planning effort, and certainly have and do that with the knowledge of whether we are or are not going to get the railroad crossing approved by the DOT. So again, things may be just a little premature for us. And the hope is that you and others who are out there watching what we're doing are patient enough to let us run through our process.
And I don't think it's going to be the full 9 months. I think we need to get in with whoever we're going to use, and we need to have some very specific questions asked right away and get some answers right away. Are the uses that we want really usable, really doable in this location? I think those are some of the first questions we have. That's my position. So, okay. Anything else we have to say? Anything else anybody has to say? Yes, Mr. Leszewski.
The other thing is just the aesthetics of it. Okay, we call this the gateway, right? So we're going to be jamming a lot of heavy duty, not to, you know, impugn you guys, but a lot of heavy duty, not exactly beautiful trucks right on that intersection. So it's going to kind of set the tone and tenor for people getting off there of that district. So, well, I get the visibility component. I would say that their business is probably more of a destination than somebody driving along the highway and saying, I'm gonna stop and buy a truck. Although I understand the advantages for being on the highway, but at the same time, the disadvantages for the community is, I think of North Fond du Lac, right? That's just my, I don't want that impression in that area.
Well, and that's part of why some of the questions I asked, I still am grappling with trying to envision, and maybe I need to visit more of your sites and see what the aesthetics are. And maybe you park all the really nice looking trucks in a certain spot. I don't know. And frankly, I think if a tractor operators heard you say that their tractors are not attractive, they probably run you over. But
and deservedly so. But when you park them all together, okay,
it's a different look, certainly. That's for sure.
Well, if it helps, the village does buy our truck, so they find something.
That's true.
But we also carry a pretty good share of the market too. So we do some things, you know, right with the aesthetics of the truck, and our facilities are very well kept, organized, clean, and frontline ready. So it would not be a salvage yard by any means.
No,
And I don't think
appreciate the comment, though.
I don't think we're saying no. We're just not ready to figure out. We don't have the right information for you right now. So give us a little bit of time and we'll reach back to the Dickmans and let them know what we've come up with.
No, thanks for having us
in a short amount of time.
Appreciate what you do for us already, and look forward to hopefully doing something in the future together.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sure.
Just want to give you a little bit more background as you're considering it. So we have an ownership group that bought this property about 15 years ago. And we are passive owners. We are not developers. So we're holding it to sell it. And these are the perfect buyer in my view, for reasons that were discussed here. But if you are looking at it for a long-term development and for someone to go in and actually do neighborhood residential or multifamily, what we have found in our marketing is that right now there is no market for that. And we have brought it to users like that. Director Retzloff has told us what the plan is. They're just not out there right now. This is a retail user that is out there. So My point is, it could sit like it is for a very long time if we don't act on something like this. And I know that's in your consideration. That's the only point I wanted to make, is that, we have waited for a long time. And I think that if we lose this opportunity, which can maximize the site, we're prepared to hold on to it for a long time and see what happens, but we're just not, we can't go in and develop a neighborhood center because we don't have the resources within our group
Right.
to do that. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, and we're just trying to figure out what's the right thing for our village to go there. So this may be the right thing, but we have to go through our due diligence and
No, we
do our
appreciate your
investigation.
consideration.
So, yep, thank you. Anything further on that topic?
I guess I just have a quick question.
Yes.
The outlot within which the driveway is located is a separate ownership. That's the Holy Hill Self-Storage. They own that narrow outlot that provides the driveway access not only
You
to,
mean the driveway on the east?
on the east side, yes.
Easement
Okay.
arrangement with them?
So is there a representative for them here today? No, because I know they've had some issues with one of the owners passing away recently.
Yeah, I can't speak for them, but there is an access easement that our parcel has for them,
All the way
all the way down. Yeah, so that would connect with it.
down to the railroad?
Yeah, approximately, I think.
Okay. So if the village were not going to construct a public street and pursue that avenue, are you folks prepared to deal with constructing a private driveway in that outlot along your easement rights?
We're not, no.
No, okay.
Okay. Anything further? No? All right, we will move on to the next item. Next item, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm David Buckley. I'm with the Berry Company, and I've been marketing this property for a number of years. And we appreciate the opportunity to stand before you this evening to give our thoughts regarding the property and the potential future uses for it. In our marketing of the property, we have had your 2050 plan since it came out about a year ago. And we adjusted our marketing to fit that particular plan, to go after the retail type market, the potential for multifamily. I guess what I've heard, at least in this evening's meeting, and also the meetings when the Zilber project kicked out of the ground with the addition of the Briggs and Stratton property, was that the residents move here for the peace and quiet, and that their feeling is that they're getting out of the city and they're getting themselves to a peaceful place. And I guess I can appreciate your studies, and I can appreciate the work that has gone into this project thus far. I guess I'm a little questioning on the location of a diamond interchange with an interstate freeway being particularly attractive to create a market for that type of a product. We have gone to the retail community to market this property, even to the extent of, if you look at the drawing here, we actually cut off the top portion on the north end, and we created an outlot to work to attract the smaller, be it the Culvers or the restaurant type candidates for that. And we received no reply, no response from that. That's our marketing. That's what we've done thus far. And we've really followed what your preliminary 2050 plan is, to try to get the best bang for the buck with our marketing dollars, to do the best that we can. So given truck country and the use that they have close to the Diamond Interchange, servicing the primarily distribution customers that are down the road in the gateway and the surrounding areas. For me, it makes a tremendous amount of sense. Not only for them to have less travel time, safety wise, I think it's a safer location without having to travel in, as mentioned earlier, from the freeway to 107th Street, for instance. So I hope you'll take that into consideration in your thinking, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, with that, I will move on to item number F, which is the Village of Germantown 2050 Comprehensive Plan, implementation of Holy Hill Gateway District and the Freistadt District Master Plan, preliminary review of consultant proposals for discussion and action. Director Retzloff.
Yeah, just give me a second here. All right. You know, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, just after the proposals came in, we wanted to take this time to discuss those proposals and make some decisions with regard to moving forward with interviews and assuming we are going to interview, which of the consultants we're going to interview. If not all of them, then which ones? And any specific questions that you have regarding the proposals that I can in turn pass along to, if I can't answer them, pass along to the consultants so that they can be prepared with answers, either provide them beforehand or as part of their interview discussion. With that said, there are a couple of things that I need to tell you that since we met last, we've had some conversations with the county executive and representatives from Washington County, the Next Generation Housing Program. And as you are aware, since, for the last year or so, we have participated in the county Next Generation Housing Program to the extent that we have indicated that we want to be a partner with them. But we've moved sort of slowly, gingerly through the process, and we haven't jumped, in like other communities like Slinger, Hartford, and Jackson have, to the extent where they've actually have development proposals that, in case of Jackson, is moving forward with actual development, consistent with the Next Generation proposal. But given our interest and effectively signing on as an interested community, there has been money made available, or earmarked, if you will, for our use for Next Generation housing purposes. One of the things that the city of Hartford did fairly early on was to use some of their money that was earmarked for them to conduct a residential market analysis that looked at not just the market, potential market for next generation housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, whatever terminology you want to use, but to look at all aspects or markets: for sale, rental, market rate, all the different types of housing opportunities that are available. And so Germantown needs to do the same. In fact, we have one of the policies in the 2050 plan is to conduct a residential market analysis. Well, make a seemingly a long story shorter, the county is willing to let us use some of the money earmarked for us to conduct a residential market analysis, and things are in the works. There's a proposal out there that the county has helped Germantown pull together. It's going to be going to the village committees in the next round of meetings, general government, finance, I believe, and the village board for discussion and consideration. But it's certainly possible that we would get funding from the county 100% for a residential market analysis that we could use to address some of the questions we were just talking about. You know, what type, if any, housing is suitable for this location, and what is the market for it, either now or at least outward 10, 15 years. And so we're pursuing that, and that may very well be a separate study that's done concurrently with our master plan efforts. What that means, though, is that the component of the master plan proposals that we basically were asking for as part of the scope to do some of that market analysis, that may not have to be done by the consultant that we select. They may be more utilizing that's some work product that's being generated by this other consulting firm that does residential market analysis on a regular basis. So that is something we need to factor into this a little bit. And I'm not sure exactly how, but we may end up having to, depending upon the consultant that we pick, discuss where we're at that point in the process and modify their scope with regard to the residential market component. If we're having the work done by somebody else, then they don't necessarily have to do it, but we have to figure out the timing for it all. The other thing that's happened is that we've gotten a financial advisor opinion, legal opinion from our attorney that the village can utilize to a limited degree TID money, TID funds for infrastructure, environmental and land use planning purposes for areas within the TIDs and or within a half mile. So the notion that we may be able to utilize TID funds to pay a portion of the master plans that we're doing for the Holyoke Gateway and the Freistadt District mean that we may be able to get more work done without having to spend more, if any, general fund dollars to get that work accomplished. And we're working on that now as we speak and what approvals we need in order to do that going forward. Certainly, we would need to amend the project plan for the TIDs, in this case, TID 8, which is within the Holy Hill Gateway District, and portions of TID 7 are in Holy Hill Gateway and the Freistadt District. So it's conceivable that the want for funds to do the planning we may be able to utilize TID money to get those efforts accomplished and possibly shift over some of the general fund dollars that we've budgeted for this year to get a better start on possibly the village center master plan. So there's a lot of moving parts at this point. What that means for our proposals, it's still kind of a question mark, but I think we need to keep plowing ahead. We may conclude in the next couple of weeks that, frankly, we have to pull back and maybe reissue the RFP based on some of these changes in potential budget, funding sources, and or the need for a residential market analysis.
Saying reissue this RFP
Yeah.
or
Yes, restructure this one and possibly reissue it.
Okay.
If we can't work around some of the issues we've got. You know, the third thing is that the railroad crossing issue. It's become a bigger and bigger issue. And in the consultations we've had with engineering is that it's going to take a concerted effort to provide the information necessary to justify getting the railroad crossing. You know, the response from the DOT and the railroad immediately when you talk about a new railroad crossing is, okay, which crossing are you going to close in exchange for opening up a new one? Well, you start scratching your head and you know, maybe we do, maybe we don't have an existing crossing somewhere in the village that we could close as a way of appeasing the railroad commissioner and the DOT in order to get approval for the crossing. What we're being told is that that's not necessarily the case. That's always an ask, but it's not a requirement. And that if we go through the process and go through a thorough process of evaluating traffic patterns with and without the railroad crossing, with and without certain types of land use assumptions, we can justify or should be able to justify the railroad crossing, or maybe not. But we need to go through that effort as well. And the thought is that if we can utilize TID money to pay for infrastructure planning, maybe some of that money can be used for the railroad crossing application and study and not have to utilize the master planning process to get that effort done. Because that's one of the things we called for in the proposal, was for these consultants to look at the railroad crossing alternative. And as you have probably found when you read the proposals, not all of them address the railroad crossing issue at all. And I think, at least my conclusion is that the consultants that submitted proposals looked at what we were asking for and put together a proposal that stayed on budget and gave us as much of what we were asking for, but certainly couldn't give it all.
Does the water and sewer crossing the railroad, that it's just the vehicles crossing the railroad is a problem?
The railroad crossing is realistically, it's the Village of Germantown's issue. Because the sewer isn't intended to cross the railroad. At this point, the plan is to run it up to the railroad, the south side of the railroad, and then northwesterly along the south side of the railroad into Richfield and eventually back up into their northeast corridor industrial area.
But at some point, it's got to cross the railroad.
But not in the Village of Germantown.
Right.
The railroad crossing that we're concerned about and that we're interested in
is
just the one that appears on our 2050 plan, and that is sort of the backbone for what's currently the vision for the land uses that are shown on the screen, and ultimately what will be coming out of the master plans for the Freistadt district and the Holyoke Gateway area.
Right.
So again, I'm meeting tomorrow with an engineering firm that we're going to be talking about the railroad crossing issue. That may help us decide whether or not we need to restructure our master plan RFP and pull some pieces out that are going to be satisfied elsewhere and by other means. And in all fairness, give those consultants who may have said, sorry, we can't even submit because we can't meet your budget, they may be able to submit now.
How many others were there that you went after and didn't submit?
There were at least two others that told me specifically they weren't going to submit because of the budget.
Okay.
And because, it's a budget question.
Yeah.
We can't do all of what you're asking for the money you're sending aside.
Okay.
And so if the list of things we want becomes much shorter, we don't need them to deal with the railroad crossing issue, then maybe it becomes a little bit more palatable and affordable, and we get another proposal to consider. So that's part of the thought process.
Okay, so what do we need to go over tonight? If
Well,
anything?
I guess at this point, notwithstanding what I just said, I would like to know if, assuming we do go forward with this effort, what your reaction is to the proposals we have. Any questions that you want me to pass along to those consultants? And more importantly, are we going to do interviews, and which ones do you want to interview? 'Cause like I said, in my own evaluation, not every proposal included everything that we've asked for in the manner that we asked for it. And so from that standpoint, if you're going to review these stringently as far as, addressing the RFP, arguably you could toss them all out.
Okay.
But I don't think that's worthwhile. I think we've got some good effort that's proposed here.
So I'll just tell you, my bias is basically companies I've worked with before and companies I've got experience with. I prefer to work with them because I have no idea what these other companies do. Frankly, I've never heard of them before, and I've never worked with them before. I've never seen their name around the industry. So That's where my bias would lie. Commissioners, any comments? Mr. Nillis?
So in my review, I guess I came up with two that kind of rose to the top that I think would be worth interviewing. There was a third that I really liked their proposal, but the fees seem to be out of whack, and I guess maybe that's going to be, we're going to work that out a little bit potentially. And then the fourth one, I just didn't think that they didn't have the experience that we were looking for. The recent project experience just didn't seem to match what we were looking for. Just didn't seem to hit the mark as far as I was concerned. So I think there are two that I would like to consider for interviews. I can give you the details, which two those are if you'd like.
Sure. Who are they?
It's the Grafe and MSA.
Those are the two that I also chose. Tarantino?
Going back to the money that would be set aside or given to us by the state for planning,
County.
The market analysis for residential market analysis given by the county. If that is going to be happening, if they're going to be doing the residential market analysis while someone's designing what the area is going to look like, and they say there's very low need for multifamily, and the design firm is designing heavy on multifamily or whatever, it's just how it's got to be because they're going to happen at the same time, right? And I mean,
Ideally, you'd want one before the other. I think they could overlap to a small degree. What I've seen is that the residential market analysis isn't going to take 9 months. It could be ready in 6 to 8 weeks, depending upon the time frame. So it could be a process of maybe needing to delay the start of the master plan project a little bit.
so I've looked at all of the people who submitted a proposal, their websites, and for me, I like Grafe. They're familiar with us and they do full overlays of different scenarios. Everybody does a version of that where they switch out some things and show you different plans, but Grafe, at least on their website, has the same spot, Gateway District, 3 totally different ways. So going back to what I just said, I think that if you have those 3 and the market analysis is being done simultaneously, since you may not get one soon enough before the other, that you have 2 or 3 options to look at instead of just getting one hit from another company that totally missed the mark of what the market analysis told us was that the community has an appetite for. So I'm just saying that's who my vote would be for. Be Grafe and multiple versions of the same area.
Would you want to interview anybody else? No? Okay. Mr. Williams?
It's gonna kind of sound redundant from what Peter said, but I going through them, I mean, I like the R.A. Smith and the Neighborhood Partners Engron proposal, but they're 50% higher than the other parties and, 50 to 60% over our budget. So I kind of ruled them out. Green Bicycle, just in looking at their experience and the projects they've completed. The firm just started in 2020. And it looked like all of their experience was all in the Sheboygan area. They didn't really have much else on their website or in their proposal other than projects in that area. So it seemed like they were pretty limited in experience. So I had ruled those 2 out and I was recommending that we interview Grafe and MSA.
Yeah, if I could jump in, the neighborhood planners and the R.A. Smith proposal, the one that was at 98,000. Clearly, their approach factors in a robust evaluation of the railroad crossing in the transportation analysis component. Arguably, if that piece were removed and done separately and paid for separately, for example, with TID money, then I tried to do this. I basically took all of R.A. Smith's hours and their cost out of it. And the 98,000 proposal drops down to 59,980 if you take out, again, all of the R.A. Smith stuff, assuming that's exclusively transportation related. So, you know, all of a sudden that's right in the ballpark with the other three. And I think that may be a question to ask of them. If we were to accomplish the railroad crossing transportation component separately, is it as easy as pulling this part out of your proposal and considering the balance of it? You know, if the answer is no, it's too integral and we'd have to go back and check, you know, then you start scratching your head, or I do, and wonder, you know, is it fair at this point to keep moving forward, or do we basically reject all the proposals with an explanation that we still are trying to get our stuff together, and we're going to reissue this in a few weeks to a month once we've made some decisions, because we'll know certainly in a month whether or not the village board is going to authorize acceptance of county funds for the next generation market residential analysis. And we'll be a little bit further along in discussing with our engineering folks what the time frame will be for the railroad crossing application and analysis. You know, that's another thing. If they're going to tell us that this is going to be a 9-month process to apply for and find out about a railroad crossing, then it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have those two efforts going on in a parallel process where we're guessing as to whether or not we're going to get the crossing or not. It almost begs us to hold off and defer starting the process until we have that answer.
Right. Well, I don't know about that because I still need the plan north of the railroad.
True.
So I still want all the input for there. And I got developers who want that property and they want to move on it now. And I got nothing to work with. I don't know whether what we have envisioned for this parcel is even doable. That's what I'm waiting for, somebody to come around and say, hey, yes, your vision is doable. It's going to take some time, or you guys are nuts. You're never going to get anything like that.
I mean, that's fair.
That's what because I got 2 developers that are ready to go. And that's not TIF money that's being spent there. That's their own money, and there's opportunities there.
Bob, can I ask you if the neighborhood planner's proposal didn't have that heavy transportation railroad crossing aspect to it, and the budget was down in line with the others, would that be one that you would want to consider interviewing?
Yeah, I would. I mean, if they weren't 50% over budget and over the other 2 groups, I would have included them as a third to interview. I do note MSA did include a transportation network review where they did discuss reviewing the existing railroad crossings in their proposal. And they were still in the 60 to 65 range. So I know if we pull out the 38,000 out of the R.A. Smith proposal, you know, they're down to 59 without the transportation review, but MSA had it. I mean, I don't know if it says extensive, but they had it included at 64, 65. So
yeah, I didn't think that their proposal on the transportation railroad crossing side was as heavy. It seemed just a little bit more, we're going to look at the existing system and just make assumptions whether you get it or not and move on from there and not even analyze it. So
I guess, can I make a comment?
Sure.
I feel the same. I mean, when I first read R.A. Smith's proposal, I think, but it really met my expectations the best, except for the bottom line number. And that's where it kind of fell apart for me. So I would support talking to them or seeing if they can adjust their scope and fees to be more in line with, others. But yeah, I thought they had a very good proposal, except the bottom line.
Mr. Shadid?
Well, I kind of, wait a minute, I guess I'm not muted.
No.
I picked Grafe right off the bat. I read them, I liked them. I've had some experience on here and in another life with that company. I like them. Between MSA and RA Smith, which were my other two that I liked, I pretty well ruled out RA Smith based on that cost figure because I thought MSA's proposal was at least as good or better for a lot less money. I hadn't considered the railroad crossing thing, but I guess right now, knowing what I know today, I'd like to see Grafe and MSA. Now, if there was something different that showed a different picture with RA Smith, I'm not sure that I would eliminate MSA and pick them for number two. I guess in that case, I'd like to see all three of them.
Okay, thank you.
So how do we go about getting that figured out then? You're just gonna.
So based on what I've heard, we're really only collectively not wanting to interview one that appears to be a new firm with limited experience. That would be the Green Bicycle Company.
I mean,
Correct.
I was reading the minutes from the last meeting. I thought we were asked to kick one out. And that was the one I kicked out. Just based on, they didn't have anything comparable to what we were looking for as part of their example of work. So I thought that was easy to make that elimination. I mean, they had some interesting thoughts, but I just don't think they're there yet for what we're looking for.
Right.
Experience.
So without changing the RFP, are you just gonna ask them to remove the railroad analysis part? And see if they can give you a.
Yeah, if in the next couple of days, we find out that we're able to approach the railroad crossing issue separately, I'll go back to the firms and we'll discuss.
Then if they give you a number that they'll stick to, then it would be a lot more apples to apples.
Well, I think it's worth talking to them because ultimately the goal was to ideally bring in, 2 or 3 firms for interviews, sort out some of the issues that we have, explain to them that, these parts of the scope are the most important to us, and hammer out a final scope that we both can live with given the budget. Because obviously we can't force somebody to give us something that they just can't afford to provide. I mean, when you look at, if you were to break down like I did, how many hours each of the firms is offering us and the cost. I mean, you've got Green Bay Bicycle, 550 hours at an average cost of $109 an hour. Grafe, 392 hours at an average $165 an hour. MSA, 493 hours at an average cost of $131 an hour. And the neighborhood planners, if you, the basic 98,000 budget, they're giving us 650 hours at $151 an hour. If you take out the transportation component, it's $60,000. It's 512 hours for $117 an hour. So, of the 3 we've just talked about interviewing, the neighborhood planners is the most cost-effective, MSA, and then Grafe. In terms of the average cost per hour and the number of hours we're getting out of them. I don't know, that's not a, the factor you just focus on exclusively, but it's something to consider, given the quality of the efforts that you see and the products that they've given us as examples. So,
Did you happen to talk to Beerbecker?
Yes.
They just couldn't do it for the money?
That's my, yes, that's my understanding. It was kind of strange. There was a firm that's basically said, we understand you're publishing this for public consideration and therefore we're not going to submit. Seems sort of odd, but I interpret that to mean it was just a budget issue. They weren't going to try and compete financially.
Okay. All right. So where are we going from here now? You're going to call 3 of them and we're going to interview 3 of them?
Yeah, at this point, it would be
can get the
great if
number down.
MSA and the neighborhood planner group.
If we can get neighborhood planner group down to where it needs to be.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And are there any other questions of any of those 3 that you have or anything you want me to ask of them?
You guys have any questions?
No.
Does anybody have any problem with virtual interviews?
No, I think that's great.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because I know we're going to be asked, because 2 out of the 3 are ones from the Madison area and the others from the Appleton-ish area.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do virtual.
Okay.
I think in fact, it makes it more convenient for them. We might get a better presentation.
Possibly. Okay.
All right, that's all I've got.
All right. Anything else from commissioners?
Were we also going to talk about this capstone project?
Not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda, but I will tell you that I did submit the application for the Village Center Master Plan as we discussed and decided.
Okay.
I heard back from the professor saying they're going to put it in the mix and we'll be discussing it with the students prior to whatever selection process they go through.
Okay. All right, Mr. Leszewski.
One other minor technical item with these bigger files. Is it possible sometimes to take some of the, like, I don't know, the construction plans and put them in a separate PDF? My iPad kind of bogs down when it's doing all the rendering, all the lines, when you take that big sheet and I don't know. It's just, I was looking up as a way to make Adobe faster and it said something about separating the files. So it's a memory issue or something.
It seems like it's, as we get more detailed reports, I'm going along with Tony here. It bogs down the computer. It won't move from page to page until it does some calculating. And I'm telling you, the computer I'm using is pretty powerful.
I'll ask you this. One of the components of just about every site plan that adds a third of the size is stormwater management reports because of all of the miscellaneous stuff at the back end. We can start paring those back if you like, and just including, basic summary sheets, the first 5 pages typically.
Yeah, it'd be fine by me.
Yeah, I agree.
An
But
engineer.
Tony had a good point though. If there are some things that really are eating up memory in the computer, such as huge drawings, which I guess we need to see, and we do, but if they were in a separate file, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, we could try and do something like that. Frankly, I'm not the technology guru, so I'm wondering out loud if maybe we make it a requirement of what they submit, that they do some level of compression or file size management so that we can review them as PDFs. Not to the point where, we zoom in a couple of levels and it's already pixelated and you can't read the text, but maybe there's
Agreed.
something you can do.
You can compress a PDF to 1/10 the size. Because I have to do it to submit my drawings to other cities.
Oh,
So it is doable.
so do they require you to do that?
I can't get it through the online portals.
Okay.
So it has to be compressed to get through.
What do you use to do that? Just Acrobat?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to buy an add-on. You have to get an add-on. It's $200.
So if we make that a requirement of the developers, then they can spend the $200.
I'm sure most of us architects got it
Yeah.
by now.
All right, we'll look into that.
It's a compression, PDF compression. That's it.
Okay.
All right. I have no announcements, so I'll call this meeting adjourned. 10:05.
David,
Yes, sir.
quick comment. This is the first time I've used the online portal since COVID.
Yes.
And I don't know what we've done, but it was a pleasure to use it. Your audio came through nice. Did my audio come through okay?
Well, right now you're screaming at us.
Well, that was always the problem, and I don't know how to adjust it. I guess I could turn that down from this end. But I do know that when I've been there in the room and a participant commented, it would be just screaming. I remember that.
Yeah, that's what it is here, is you are extremely loud, and I don't know if we can turn down the speakers or what.
Yeah, okay. That's about
But
it.
thank you very much.
Everything's got.
Right.
Bunch
Take
of
care.
Talk
information
to you
points.
later.
Yeah. That's right.
Why would you say?
Have a good night.
Well, they did. They participated, they submitted projects, they were all in until the developers pulled the plug.